SACOG. Wanted to start off with leading the pledge. If you could get the flag shared there, that would be great. Director Stallard, would you lead us in the pledge?
Yes, please join me in our pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. We are going to actually, Lynette, would you please go through the roll?
Yes, thank you. Just a few housekeeping reminders before we begin. As a reminder, the meeting is being recorded. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, you're welcome to email me at the address in the agenda. You can also press *9 if you'd like to make a comment. Board members, we also ask that you mute your device when you're not speaking. Today is Thursday, August 20th. Director Allard?
Here.
Baldwin?
Here.
Douglas?
Present.
Flores? Absent. Frost? Here. Gallardo? Absent. Gore?
Here.
Boomgarden for Harris? I see him on the line. I'll mark him present. Jankovitz?
I'm here.
Jennings?
Here.
Joyner?
Here.
Kennedy?
Here.
Kozlowski?
Here.
Leahy?
Here.
Lozano?
Here.
New?
Here.
Onderco?
Here.
Peters? I see her. I'll mark her present. Sander?
Here.
Zaragoza? Absent. Saylor?
Here.
Chenier?
Here.
Slowey?
Here.
Spokley?
Here.
Allard?
Here.
Thune?
Here.
Tixa?
Here.
Bierkamp?
Here.
West?
Here.
Vice Chair Samayoa? Mark him absent. And Chair Frericks?
Here.
And do we have ex officio member Takar? Okay, I'll mark her absent.
Not seeing her, yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Just before we get going, we're gonna, we'll move on to public communications next, but just wanted to just take a moment just to sort of just check in and sort of acknowledge, all that's going on at the moment here. I'm sure at a minimum, many of us are facing these smoke-filled, sort of our communities right now. Just want to acknowledge the challenges that some of our and sort of this destruction that's going on in other parts of the state. Certainly just for us here in Yolo, just to the west of us in Solano, and even here in parts of Yolo and western part of the county, where, the fires over by Lake Berryessa are just have really massively exploded in the past 48 hours. And so and I know, and there's so many others all around the state. So just wanted to, I know that I'm thinking about that. And that while we're all mostly safe here in the Sacramento region, actually, fortunately, due to our geography of the flat terrain, lots of others are facing a real hardship at the moment. So just wanted to, as we all are local elected leaders, just, take a moment of just sort of to contemplate and think about all the stuff that's going on in some of our sister jurisdictions across our state. So I'm going to move on to public communications. This is the time for anyone who wishes to address this board on an item that does not appear elsewhere on the agenda. Lynette, have we received any comments via email, or is there a member of the public participating by telephone that wishes to comment?
Chair Ferricks, I have not received any general public communications. I do have comments for other agenda items that I can read into the record at that time.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Let's see. So actually moving along. Oh, so the vice chair is in the waiting room. If he could be admitted to the meeting, that would be great.
We'll take care of that. Thank you.
Thank you. So before we adjourn to the CVR Safe Board meeting, I'm just going to reorder the agenda slightly by moving up the Youth Leadership Academy item information, item number 13. We're going to hear that item briefly now and then move to the CVR Safe meeting. And, you know, in part, it's because the person who's going to be presenting needs to get to school. And so we don't want to impede with the middle of the school day or the beginning of the school day by that presentation. But Rosie Ramos, the SACOG staff, is going to introduce the item, and she's going to be followed by Selena Enriquez, a student from Elk Grove who participated in the program this year. So let's see. So item 13 is the Youth Leadership Academy presentation. I just want to say a few quick things. You know, thanks so much to Rosie for her hard work on the program this year. And I know, Selena, we're really honored to have you with us this morning. You know, the board we're going to hear next an agenda item about this year's program. And obviously it was, you know, a little bit different than the first year of the Youth Leadership Academy because also, like most of our meetings this year, things had to adjust and be moved virtually. And so there weren't as many cool in-person tours like of the airport like they did last year. So Rosie, if you want to go right ahead.
Yeah, great. Let me just share my screen really quickly.
And you've got to be quite a bit louder.
Okay, great. Okay, I just need to share my screen really quick. I believe Katie, if that's okay. Okay, good morning, directors. My name is Rosie Ramos, and I am your program coordinator for the Youth Leadership Academy. Today, I'm here to give you a recap of the YLA and a look ahead for what's to come. While I do this, you will see a slideshow of pictures from the last few months with our students. So this summer, we finished our second year of the Youth Leadership Academy. As you recall, we started this program in 2018 at the direction of Director and then Chair Jay Chenier. Through Director Chenier's fundraising efforts and through the generous funding from various sponsors, we were able to have 2 consecutive years. So many thanks to our sponsors. We have continued our partnership with Pro Youth and Families, which without them, this program would have not been possible. So also to them, many thanks to the staff. Since the first year, we have engaged with about 80 students. And this year, though we didn't quite get full representation from the region, we did have students from Placer, Sacramento, Sutter, and Yolo counties. So El Dorado and Yuba, we're definitely coming for you next year. This second year, we began with 40 students accepted into the program. And as is usual, we did have some drops. So we had about 35 active participants in the first couple of months. As with everything in our lives, COVID-19, as Chair Ferricks mentioned before, did bring some unanticipated changes. And we had to adapt to the changing environment and switch to a fully online program. Due to the change in format, we decided to do bi-weekly sessions instead of once a month. Though we were concerned that students might not be able to participate because of the impacts of the pandemic, we were able to still retain about 30 students that continuously engaged and finished the program, which I'm very proud and happy about. Our increased interactions led to a stronger relationship with the facilitators and the students, and we were able to keep students engaged and having critical and thoughtful conversations during a pandemic and a national movement. There were many lessons learned from this year and how we interact online and the level of engagement that students are ready for. We are beginning to plan out the next year, and at the next board meeting in September, I will share a digital outreach toolkit for you to help us do some outreach in your community so that we have that full regional representation. I do want to point out that in the staff report, you will find an attachment that is the final project summaries that our students completed. Students were asked to consider all the sessions that they participated in, their own personal expertise and experience, and pick an issue in their community that they would like to address. They have provided recommendations for all of you to consider. As you look at the issues your constituents, our future leaders are seeing, I'm here to help you connect to them. I know they're eager and ready to have conversations with you and to work alongside with you. And our students love the opportunities to connect with their local representatives. I cannot stress enough how intelligent, how creative, and how resilient our region's youth are. So I truly encourage you to reach out. And so on that note, I would like to introduce one of our students, Selena Enriquez from the city of Elk Grove, to share a little bit about her experience in the program and highlight her final project.
All right. Good morning, SACOG board. My name is Selena Enriquez, and I am a senior at Elk Grove High School. I also sit on the Elk Grove Youth Commission. I came here today to discuss my experience with Youth Leadership Academy and what a privilege it was to be able to be a part of something so great. I got here through an email and had no idea that every 8 a.m. session would leave me feeling empowered, fulfilled, like I could do something and supported. My experience is not uniquely personal. It is something that I believe is universal among all YLA students. The speakers were really what hit home. Two speakers in particular really stood out to me, and that was Jose Bodipo Memba from SMUD, who taught us how redlining exists in our communities and how things like food deserts are actually pretty prevalent in Sacramento. Another one was James Rojas, who is an LA-based urban planner. And he taught us that when we think in the boxes that society has conditioned us to, we limit our creative opportunities to help those in need. And it shows us how our bias impacts legislature. That leads me into my next topic, which is my project. I did a project about the deteriorating roads in Old Town Elk Grove. Now, some roads don't even exist in Old Town. Within a mile radius, there are some dirt paths and sometimes not even sidewalks or potholes. But that wasn't the focus of the policy recommendation project. What I learned from doing that project was something that was invaluable. It's that in government, there are so many hidden systems that we have to break apart in order to achieve what we want. And compromise is so important when there's so many different viewpoints coming together. YLA was made up of so many diverse students of different backgrounds, cities, counties, parents, immigrants, so many different people that you begin to learn how to look at things through an open mind and an open lens and understand why people think the way that they do and why people want legislature to look a certain way. So my project wasn't about the Old Town Elk Grove roads deteriorating. It was about how do these deteriorating roads impact me and how I view the world. Another thing that was really important was that I realized that I actually lived in a community that was kind of impacted by this kind of infrastructure. With deteriorating roads, I discovered that my house was actually cheaper to buy, and that by living next to the railroad tracks and all the dust kicking up, it also makes my house cheaper to buy and impacts where I live, the access to resources that I have, and among other things. It wasn't just a simple project, it was an experience. There were so many lessons I learned in YLA. I'll be honest and admit that before YLA, I had zero trust in my peers. I think this is something that we all battle with as leaders, is that we have a hard time trusting others who are also just as capable, passionate, and open-minded to do the work, because we feel if we do it ourselves, we can get it done more efficient, but that's just not true. YLA showed me that patience and understanding can lead to so many more greater things, and that when we understand each other, we can do things that are just unimaginable. Now I feel like I can trust people more to get things done because we all care. We all care, or we wouldn't be here. Another invaluable thing that I learned was that as an individual, you can only do so much. But when you work together as a group, you're unstoppable, completely unstoppable. There's an old proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. This was the foundation of my YLA experience. So to put a long 5 months into a short 5 minutes, my experience was overwhelmingly positive, and I cannot explain to you what a privilege it was to be one of the 35 students who got to experience this program. The support I was given to me and my peers is something that I cannot take for granted. You know, everybody needs to hear that what they're doing is valuable. Everybody needs to hear that people want to hear what you have to say. Everybody needs to know that they make an impact in their community. So this is really a necessity, and I wish that more people could experience YLA. And like I said, I don't take it for granted. But I think the most important part is that what SACOG and YLA show us is that when we come together with all of our diverse perspectives, it shows us that unity creates something bigger. It's always important to remember to be empathetic, patient, and kind to one another because of our experiences. So if you have any questions, I'm open to them, and thank you so much for listening to me.
Thanks so much, Selena. I know that I was blown away by the class this year. Last year was great too, but when I got to speak to them at the beginning of the year and spend some time with them in one of their sessions early on when we were still all in person, I think Director Soon might want to also say a few words since I know he also participated and Selena is on the Elk Grove Youth Commission.
Thanks, Chair Farks. Selena, it's great to see you. And now all of you can see why we're so proud of Selena, our Youth Commission, and all the students that participated in this program. As we mentioned, there are many from all over the different counties. My experience with all the individuals that day I got to speak to them, it gives me great hope for our future, knowing that these individuals are engaged. And what Selena was talking about, she was learning about collaboration early on. I mean, that's something that, you know, didn't set in for me until much later in life. And it's a reason why I want to give a shout out for Director Chenier for starting this program. It's so challenging, I think, and all of us recognize this, to educate or you know, just inform our public about the work that we do at our own city council and county level, but to take it up to a regional level where there's so many more of us trying to collaborate. And Selena, you experienced that with a number of YLA participants. That level of collaboration is a whole nother level of complexity, and it's just fantastic to engage with you all. And I'm just so proud to see, you know, the Elk Grove community participate, and you, especially Selena, one of our youth commissioners, participate in this program. Great job.
Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you again, Selena, for your participation. And also, yeah, Director Chenier, Jay, you know, we owe you a serious gratitude of debt with regard to your initiative around this program. I know that the funding is always an issue, and appreciate your work on, helping to find sponsors for the past 2 years now. But it's something that I think that we should be all concerted effort to try to make sure that we continue it on into the future. So thank you.
Thanks, Lucas. Really quickly, Selena, thank you. Didn't we see you last night speaking at the Democratic Convention? Was that you?
Don't flatter me.
No, I don't think I could be any more articulate than you were about the value of the program and what it means. So I just want to thank you and your peers. I want to thank Rosie and Monica and all the staff who work so hard and Pro Youth has done a great job actually in having a change of personnel also that came with this. So just want to say thanks. The good news is we actually have enough of the private funding left over from the last 2 years to do a third year. We'll try to raise some additional dollars just to supplement that. So if anyone is interested in helping on that, I'd love to send a letter to all of our funders with the wrap up, which I know Rosie is working on, and a request for something more. If we can keep a year in the bank on this, that would be great. But thank you. And James, thanks for entertaining this in the first place. This is not about me at all. This is about these young people who really can bring so much to us in the conversation. All we need to do is listen. So thank you.
Excellent. Thanks.
Thank
Chair
you
Frerichs.
so much.
Yes, go right ahead.
I'm Director Stallard. I just want to say I was a skeptic at the front end, and I realized I was wrong. This is a great program, and I congratulate Jay Chenier and all the staff and participants who've really turned it into something really great for the youth of our region. Bravo.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Director Stallard. Any other comments, questions at all? Otherwise, we'll let Selena get back to schoolwork. And thank you again, Rosie. So we're going to now adjourn the SACOG Board of Directors and convene as the CVR SAFE Board of Directors. Lynette, are there any changes from the previous roll call, please?
Thanks, Chair Frerichs. We will note for the record that Director Nguyen is with us. Director Young, are you also on the line? Okay. I don't see her. We'll mark her absent.
Great, thank you very much. Thanks, Director Nguyen, for joining us as well. So the SAFE agenda contains the following consent items: approval of the minutes from the June 18th SAFE board meeting, the contract renewal for the 511 StarNet operations and maintenance and open data hub. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on these items, Lynette?
I don't have any public comment.
Okay, great, thank you. Is there a motion to approve? Give me a hand or something. I see motion by Director New. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Director Saragosa. Thank you. So now I think we have to go through a roll call. Sorry about that.
We do, thank you. And thanks in advance for your patience. I'll go through this as quickly as I can. Director Allard,
Yes.
Cabaldon,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Flores absent, Frost,
Yes.
Gallardo,
Yes. Gore, yes.
Boomgarden, he's muted. I can come back to him. Jankovitz,
Yes.
Jennings,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Kennedy,
And I was faster than Cabaldon.
Kozlowski,
Yes.
Leahy,
Yes.
Lozano,
Yes.
New,
He made the motion.
thank
Yes.
you. Thank
Yes.
you. Onderko,
Aye.
Peters, Director Peters, thank you. I'll put you down as yes, thank you. Sander,
Aye.
Saragosa,
Aye.
Saylor,
Aye.
Chenier,
Aye.
Chloe,
Yes.
thank you. Spokley,
Yes.
Stallard, Director Stallard, could you indicate your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Soon,
Yes.
Tixa,
Yes.
Beerkamp,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Vice Chair Samayoa,
Yes.
Chair Frerichs,
Yes.
and going back to Director Boomgarden, could you indicate your vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Great, thanks so much. Let's see, so we now are going to adjourn the SAFE Board of Directors meeting and reconvene as the SACOG Board of Directors. Just thank you very much again to the SAFE Board members who were able to join us today, particularly Director Nguyen. So now moving along to the consent calendar, these items are intended to be approved in one motion. However, anyone can remove an item for a separate discussion. Are there any directors that wish to remove any items from the consent calendar? Not seeing anyone or hands raised. Okay, thanks.
Chair,
Oh, yes, go right ahead.
sorry. Director Flores is on the line and he wants to be included. He wants to let folks know that he just texted me, he is on the meeting and his vote was yes in the prior roll call. And somehow he can't get unmuted. So just FYI that Dan Flores is on the meeting.
Thank you. We'll note that for the record and we'll make sure to record his vote, and I'll work with our tech staff to make sure he's unmuted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So not hearing of anything wanting to be removed from the consent calendar. Lynette, is there anyone from the public who wishes to remove an item for public comment?
No, I'm not showing any.
Okay, great. Is there a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar?
Jennings will move the consent calendar.
Thank you.
Allard, second.
Okay, so motion by Jennings, second by Stallard, and we're in the deja vu roll call.
I think it was it Allard?
Actually, Allard.
I'm sorry, my apologies. Thank you.
That's all right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Allard,
Yes.
Cabaldon,
Yes.
Douglas,
Yes.
Director Flores, are you unmuted?
Yes.
Thank you. And is your vote also yes?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Frost,
Yes.
Gallardo,
Yes.
Gore,
Yes.
Boomgarden,
Yes.
Jankovitz,
Yes.
Jennings,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Kozlowski,
Yes.
Leahy,
Yes.
Lozano,
Aye.
New,
Yes.
Onderko,
Yes.
Peters, Director Peters, can you give me a yes? Thank you. Sander,
Aye.
Zaragoza,
Aye.
Saylor,
Aye.
Janier,
Aye.
Slowey,
Aye.
thank you. Spokley,
Yes.
Stallard,
Yes.
Thune,
Yes.
Pixa,
Yes.
Veerkamp,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Vice Chair Samayoa,
Yes.
and Chair Frericks.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thanks everybody for hanging in there with the roll calls. So we've now come to the action portion of the agenda. We're going to hear item 10, which is the adoption of green zones to support Green Means Go. Jennifer Hargrove is going to present the item.
Good morning. I'm here today requesting your adoption of the framework for establishing green zones to support our Green Means Go effort. Just quickly going to get my screen share going. Here we go. Back in June, I presented on the draft framework, which is attachment A of the staff report. Changes to the draft that you saw in June are highlighted by being in red and are underlined. I'll briefly review those changes, but I'd like to start with a quick history on why Green Means Go and why green zones in infill areas, since those were some of the questions that did come up at the Land Use and Natural Resources Committee. You're all familiar with the components of Green Means Go, which are to accelerate infill, and then within these infill areas, accelerate alternative travel options and electric vehicle programs and infrastructure. You'll recall that we developed this strategy because of the 19% greenhouse gas reduction target that we have for the MTP-SCS, and specifically that asterisk that came along with it, which basically was added by the state to say, we know this target is ambitious for your region. What support do you need to help achieve it? So we really dug in and looked at our plan, and we're very thoughtful about what is the strategy that we need. What's the piece of the puzzle that's getting us to this target that is so critical that we need to focus there so that we actually have a chance to hit this ambitious target. And what we see is that land use, specifically land use and the transportation connection, account for more than half of our greenhouse gas reduction target. So why is that? and it's VMT. A reduction in vehicle miles traveled, how far we're driving, how often we're driving, is a primary factor in how the state calculates greenhouse gas reduction for purposes of the MTP SCS. So knowing that VMT reduction is critical, we really began then asking, how do we support a VMT reduction? And we know that vehicle miles traveled on a per capita basis is reduced when there's a density of people and places, and people are able to get to those places through a connected system with options for walking and biking and transit sometimes. And generally speaking, we see these conditions in built up areas or our infill communities. This is also shown in our modeling as well. Here we can see the average VMT per capita by community type in 2040. One important thing that you don't see on this chart is the fact that actually all of these community types have a lower VMT per capita in 2040 than they do today. So in other words, all of the community types and the growth and the future land use and transportation pattern within each of these areas is helping us to achieve our target. So the plan really does support development in all community types. But when we consider that roughly 64% of the new homes and 84% of the new jobs in the MTP-SCS are assumed to be in infill areas, these two community types, the centers and corridors and established communities, we began to focus here with Green Means Go to be impactful, because we know that achieving that level of infill development in the next 15 years is very ambitious. So the Green Means Go strategy was really built around that. This is a map from the MTP that shows where these infill areas are. Again, it's the center and corridor communities that are shown in red, and then the established communities shown in gray. Highlighted a little bit better on this map for you. But you can see it's not just downtown Sacramento or where we think of the very dense places. Infill in our region is everywhere. It's suburban areas, it's commercial corridors, it's the Old Town Oak Grove area that Selena talked about. We have lots of infill opportunity throughout our region. The framework before you today is focused on then how do we establish green zones? So how do we further prioritize within these areas? Because again, if Green Means Go is designed to be a place-based investment strategy, we need to identify those places, the green zones, which are the places where we want to support and accelerate that infill development, and then the travel options and electric vehicle infrastructure to go with it. So the framework really has two criteria: that the green zone, the framework for establishing green zones, which are that the green zones must be in infill areas and that they need to be planned for growth. And then what you'll see in the framework also is that the process for identifying these areas is really designed to be led by the local agencies. We want to hear and understand where the local priorities are, where you have plans and policies for infill development, so that we can be most effective with Green Means Go. Oh, and also we've added in, and I'll get to this more, but the idea that we do need to be flexible and review and refine the program as it evolves. That's one of the comments that we got from all of the outreach with members and partners that we had done, that I'll go over in just a second. But as I mentioned, we did bring the draft to the Land Use and Natural Resource Committee and then the full board in June, and then simultaneously had started some stakeholder outreach with partner agencies and local agencies to get feedback on this framework. And so some of the changes that you'll see to the framework are, one, what I just mentioned, with the need to be flexible and potentially amend green zones and even the criteria as the program evolves, but also the need to be flexible in the small existing rural unincorporated communities. And then two, a clarification that there is no size requirement, large or small, for green zones. So if a jurisdiction is looking at jurisdiction-wide policies to support significant infill growth, they might decide to nominate a very large portion of their jurisdiction. And then third was a recognition that displacement of existing residents and businesses is a risk with a place-based investment strategy like Green Means Go. So we want to understand that better in this process. Again, you can see the exact edits to the framework in the framework itself through the underlined and red text. Finally, the Land Use and Natural Resource Committee did recommend that the board adopt the draft framework today, but they also directed staff to continue our conversations with Elk Grove staff. The City of Elk Grove provided comments and questions over the summer, one of which was about expanding the infill criteria to developing communities, specifically those developing communities that can demonstrate a reduction in vehicle miles traveled, so that those areas could be eligible as green zones. So we did that, and we've had some conversations with the city staff. Handout 1 that you got a little later in your packet and is posted on the website, labeled as Handout 1, is a summary of our follow-up discussions with the city. My presentation's already a bit long, so I'm not going to go into detail about the memo, but I do want to say that thank you very much to the city staff for the very good and thoughtful conversations. I don't believe the city has any outstanding concerns about the framework at this time, and we have committed to continuing the conversation, and SACOG is committed to continuing to support all development that helps achieve these goals. But certainly don't want to speak on behalf of the city. I think that Christopher Jordan is on the line, or Lynette is going to patch him in. So while she's patching him in, we'll give him a chance to speak on behalf of the city, and then I'll turn it back to you all for your discussion and deliberation on the action item today. Lynette, do we have Christopher?
Thank you, Jen. I'm going to invite him right now. Just give me one moment.
Oh, thanks, Renee.
Hi, Christopher. This is Renee with SACOG. Can you hear me? Hi, Christopher. This is Renee with SACOG. You are now live at the SACOG board meeting. Can you confirm that you can hear me?
Hello?
Hi. You are now live with the SACOG board meeting.
Great. Thank you very much. Christopher Jordan, City of Elk Grove. Just real briefly, I want to extend a thank you and appreciation to staff for the extra time to work through and address our concerns. We understand at this time the focus is on infill development, and we'll work with your staff to identify areas of Elk Grove best suited to a green zone designation and connecting those areas with potential funding opportunities as the program evolves. As we've discussed with your staff, Green Means Go is an opportunity to grow the overall pie of funding for projects regionally. As this occurs, we see opportunities around the region to meet greenhouse gas and VMT reduction targets throughout the region, both through infill and greenfield development. We appreciate the opportunity and clarification on the applicability of green zones to existing funding programs. They're described more in the handouts. Again, we see Green Means Go as an opportunity to grow the pool of funds that are available and not an exclusive redirection of existing programs. Lastly, I do want to mention what's described in the handout, and I don't think Jennifer got into it too much in her presentation. It does speak to exploring opportunities to improve infrastructure design and delivery, including systems in greenfield areas that facilitate evolving land uses and densities so that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. I think all development in the region should be an opportunity to build smarter. We look forward to working with SACOG and the region's infrastructure providers on this issue in the future. So again, thank you for the additional time, and we appreciate the discussion.
Thanks, Christopher. Director Frericks, I'll hand it back to you. I'm happy to answer any questions about the framework. And then just a reminder that this is an action item for the board today.
Yep, thank you very much. Appreciate that. So any additional folks out there with, directors, questions, comments at all for motion to approve and second?
Director Frericks, I could, thank you. Dr. Soon here. I also want to extend my thanks to Jennifer and SACOG staff for working with our staff on this. I think all of us are, familiar with folks in our respective communities, looking at a certain project or area and saying, what were they thinking or why did they do it that way? And I think this is the impetus behind the work that our staff has been working towards is if we can build it right the first time, then, coming back and needing to, correct, if you will, down the road is what we're trying to prevent. And so by trying to get help to do it right and lower greenhouse gas, lower vehicle miles traveled in the areas before or as we build, I think we still are meeting the overall intent of Green Means Go. So again, I just want to thank SACOG staff for working with us on that, and I'd be happy to move the item. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Appreciate those comments and the work of staff on this, and thank you for the motion. Is there a second? I think so, but I'm not seeing any hands, or I only have, okay, Sue Frost. Thank you as a second. Any further questions, comments, or discussion on the item? If not, we will go to the roll call. Lynette.
Thank you. Director Allard? Director Allard, could you indicate your vote? Okay, we'll come back to him. Cabalden? Sorry, Cabalden?
Yeah, sorry, the system wouldn't allow us to unmute.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, yes.
Allard, yes.
Thank you. I think that's corrected now. Douglas?
Yes.
Flores?
Yes.
Frost?
Yes.
Gallardo?
Yes.
Gore?
Yes.
Baumgarten?
Yes.
Jankovich?
Yes.
Jennings?
Yes.
Joyner?
Yes.
Kennedy?
Aye, and once again, faster than Cabalden.
Kozlowski?
Yes.
Leahy?
Yes.
Lozano?
Aye.
New?
Yes.
Onderko?
Yes.
Peters? Director Peters is having some audio difficulties, but I'll record her vote as yes. Thank you. Good to hear from you. Thank you. Sander?
Aye.
Zaragoza?
Aye.
Saylor?
Aye.
Chenier?
Aye.
Slowey? Director Slowey? We'll come back to him. Spokley?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll record both of those. Stallard?
Yes.
Soon?
Yes.
Tixa?
Yes.
Veerkamp? Veerkamp?
Yes.
West?
Yes.
Vice Chair Samayoa?
Aye.
Chair Frericks?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Great, thanks so much. So actually, executive sort of privilege here. I'm gonna, both of these last two items of action items are of, significant importance for the board, but I'm gonna just flip their orders. I would like us to take up, and if there are no objections to that, I would like us to take up the 2020 regional funding round policy framework first. before the Race, Equity, Inclusion Working Group charge. So if there are no objections to that, we will have Matt and Garrett are going to present the item, but also want to turn to Christopher as well as Director Cabaldon as Transportation Committee Chair as well. So I think we'll probably just kick off with staff first and then turn it over to the Chair of the Transportation Committee.
Lynette. Well, thank you, Chair Lucas. I know James has a few preparatory remarks, and I know that Lynette has some additional public comments to enter into the record. So, James, would you like to just offer some first remarks before I get started?
Sure, and if you could speak up a little bit, Matt, or turn up your volume. Thank you.
Sorry. I just repeat myself that Chair Lucas.
Turn it over to James to make a few preparatory remarks, and I believe in terms of the order that Lynette may have some public comments that need to be entered into the record as well. James.
Yeah, thanks, Matt, and thanks, Chair Frerichs. I know this is a big item for the board. There's been a lot of discussion, a lot of work on this by your staff and a lot of the other agencies in the region. I just wanted to start the presentation this morning by telling you that what you have in front of you as this staff recommendation is really intended to maximize the predictability and the certainty and increase that, because that is what we have heard loud and clear from a lot of the public works agencies. So predictability and certainty while minimizing risk to the region. And we have outlined that and discussed it. A lot of that is in your attachment C. That risk, as we've talked about through the committee cycle, is really real, we believe, from the federal level and FHWA, not even so much looking backwards, but looking forwards in terms of how FHWA is viewing formulas and allocation of dollars. The risk is real on the state side, as we are in front of the Air Resources Board right now with our 19% compliant SCS, but hoping that they will approve this so we can be eligible for state competitive grants and thus also for competitive funding. Again, those things are real. The recommendation today tries to incorporate as much of the concerns and the ideas, which I believe it does, from the Public Works proposal and others. And again, I'm going to turn it over to Matt and Garrett so we can talk through a little bit of the highlights, not too much this morning, but just actually what we have done to try to increase that predictability and certainty, going right up the line, I believe, of what actually would be acceptable to our federal partners and state partners. So Matt, take it away.
Great. Well, I'll be very brief because we just want to make sure that there's plenty of time for board deliberation on this topic, which of course has gained a lot of interest. As James pointed out, there's been a lot of robust discussion of the draft policy framework. It occurred obviously through all 3 August policy committees. And during that time, we just heard a diversity of opinion from many board members on the approach we should take for a new funding round. But the outcome from the acting committee, the Transportation Committee, turned out to be a 9-0 vote with 2 abstentions to recommend adoption of the staff recommendation. That did include a recommended action to debrief later at the board level on the 2020 funding round outcomes. This was recommended because the 2020 funding round includes many refinements. These include such things as the new streamlining provisions and a consultation process to confirm project sponsor priorities. Since the time of our committees and really over the course of this entire month, we've continued to receive a lot of additional comments. So we've received a lot of comments over this month. In addition to the brand new comments that you'll hear from Lynette, they'll be read into the record. I just want to make sure to call out some other comments that we've emailed and posted on our website that just came in over the last few days. We have, it's called handout number 2 on the website. This is from the Sacramento County Board of Supervisors. This comment letter expresses interest in additional discussions on formula-based funding options. Handout number 3 on the webpage that was also emailed out is from the Yolo County Board of Supervisors. It's a resolution that offers support for the policy framework staff recommendation that you have this morning. And then finally, we have a handout. It's really called Jurisdiction Indicators. And Garrett took the lead on this. This is in response to board member requests. We have a series of tables. They're offered with different metrics for the jurisdictions in just the 4 county SACOG region that of course is the focus of this funding round policy action. We also, just to highlight for a moment, that there's not a lot of substantial changes, but with a 71-page staff report, I'll highlight just a few different comments that were added since the time you received the last packet, the last staff report. And these are all in attachment C. It's a very lengthy and detailed summary, as you know, of stakeholder input and SACOG staff responses. And because of that, I'm just going to call out these comment letters that you'll see and track changes with responses. We have in that packet now comment letters from the Greater Sacramento Economic Council and the Sacramento Metro Chamber expressing support for continuing a competitive performance-based funding round approach. But we also have in that two comment letters from the Sutter County Development Services Department and a board resolution from the Folsom City Council recommending a formula-based approach be considered for the funding round. And then finally, in that attachment, we now have added a letter, and James referenced this with the consultation, that input we've received from Federal Highways. This is a letter from the Director of Transportation America on this issue that we had so much discussion around earlier during the committees on suballocating federal funds by a formula. That letter just raises some very specific concerns about SACOG returning to a formula-based funding approach that guarantees investment levels. So again, as you deliberate on the recommended policy action, please just let us know. Garrett and I are available if you have any questions or want more background on the new comments received. I just want to reiterate and extend what James said, is like how much we appreciate the active and ongoing interest in the policy framework from such a diverse set of stakeholders. In addition to those that wrote formal communications to us, we just appreciate that we continue to get ongoing interest from others who are reaching out to Garrett and me to ask questions and propose additional ideas. Some of these ideas may be possible to incorporate into the program guidelines. These are those guidelines that implement the policy framework you act on. That's still under development, and we really want to continue the good dialogue we have. And I'll just say, just from a personal side, from a staff perspective, it's just been really encouraging to see just the passion and strong advocacy from many of our public agency partners. For example, we just have a lot of respect for our public works and transit agency partners who are dealing with really significant financial challenges that are only mounting right now. And we just value these ideas and proposals they've offered over the months leading up to today. We have worked hard, as James said, to understand their intent. And we believe we've incorporated many of their good ideas into this policy framework. We hope that the dialogue we've had with folks over the last months leading up to today will continue during this next round of work to develop detailed program guidelines. That said, I just wanted to point out that with the changes you see in your staff report, but the overall staff recommendations for the 2020 funding round policy framework, there aren't substantive changes from the framework that was endorsed earlier this month from the Transportation Committee. The one area where there are some refinements from the committee materials relates to the board's working group on race, equity, and inclusion. You'll be hearing a bit more later about the status of that work. This group has met twice since the time of the last staff report was sent out. Garrett is our lead from the funding round team, and he's working with Jennifer, the overall program manager, to help ensure that that new Disadvantaged Communities Pipeline Projects program can be successful. The guidelines that as I mentioned, that are currently under development will reflect early outcomes from the board's equity working group, but it's also impacted or led to some changes in the materials in front of you today. In attachment D, we've added equity to program goals, and we've also added some language about advancing socioeconomic equity. We've also have building the data and tools to better evaluate project benefits. In attachment D also has some language updates on new data and analysis tools that we hope to put to good use to focus on really impactful investments that can help in disadvantaged communities. As with some of the other materials that go into implementation detail, additional detail will come back to the board for consideration during, we've developed over the coming weeks with your staff and other stakeholders, and then we'll come back and for the board for consideration during the September board cycle. Just want to end by saying, the committee's recommendation today, what came out of the Transportation Committee is a recommended action on just the policy framework, that frame. This would help us move forward with establishing an overall framework, and it also would lock in these individual programs that would make up the 2020 funding round. If we receive a board action today, then we will continue to engage with external stakeholders, both to bring a budget back to you in September and additional policy framework details for board consideration in September. Those programs with more detail coming forward will be the Community Design Program, Innovative Mobility, and the Disadvantaged Communities Pipeline Project that I just mentioned. So during the remainder of this month and continuing in September, Garrett and I would be working with external stakeholders, including your staff, on these guidelines and associated applications. We hope that these materials will provide the implementation detail so that we could go forward with a call for projects that would be happening around October 1st. So please let me know, or Garrett, if you have any questions, and we'd be happy to help as you deliberate this significant action you're taking today.
Great, thank you very much, Matt, for that. I would like to turn it now over to Director Cabaldon as the chair of the Transportation Committee to offer some comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It was 9 months ago that we began considering this topic. And I want to also acknowledge Director Slowey and others who brought this forward. And literally thousands of hours have been spent on this since that time. By our staff, to be sure, by the agency staff, and I know from many of us whose faces are on the Zoom call, 2 hours this week, 10 hours the week before, 15 the week before that. Many members of this board have engaged in deeply profound ways to try to figure out how to address some of the issues that have been raised, some of the opportunities that are out there, and some of the real challenges that we face. And I also know, referring to our chairman's comments from the beginning, that none of us anticipated spending 2020 grappling with this. I'll be honest, I've struggled a lot with the amount of time I've devoted to this topic, while also trying to deal with saving people's lives and the fundamental challenges that we're facing in our jurisdiction. So it's clearly been important and clearly an issue that every single member of this board and all the jurisdictions have taken seriously. The Transportation Committee itself alone has spent an incredible amount of time trying to work through some of these issues. They're not new. I think as we began this work, it was a reminder to me that it was in 1997 that we got the power to program these funds in the first place. Even before Director Stallard was a member of the SACOG board, and even before I was, SACOG was, I think I used to describe it as a photocopier with a 3-hole punch, where the regional transportation plan, Davis would adopt its transportation priorities and send a photocopy of it over to SACOG, and Placerville would send theirs over, send it over to SACOG. SACOG would 3-hole punch them, put them in a binder, and send them off to the California Transportation Commission saying, here's our regional plan for transportation in the Sacramento region. And in 1997, the legislature, at our request, said, hey, the state should focus on what the state knows best when it's programming its funds, things like the highways, the intercity regional system. And let's delegate to the regions the ability to program state funds within their regions. And the federal government did the same. And so the funding we're talking about, although we refer to it as the SACOG funding round, the vast majority of the funding that we're discussing today and that we have been for these last 9 months is not SACOG money. It is money that SACOG is essentially acting on behalf of the state and the federal government to allocate by their delegation, which may be withdrawn at any time. And that framework is important for the reasons that our staff mentioned just now, which is that we have to satisfy the state and federal government that we are acting on a policy basis, on a regional basis, that advances both our own regional goals and the context from the state and federal governments, and their interest in air pollution and air quality, their interest in congestion management, their interest in climate change, and the other policy drivers that are at stake here also have to be at the core of our decisions. And so this is important because we have an incredible amount of power here at SACOG to make these funding allocations, but we are doing so as the agent of the state and federal governments in most cases. And so for all of us, preserving that delegation is absolutely key. And I think, even if you don't have anything at stake in the specific formulas that have been put out there one to one, if we lose that delegation authority and we can't program funds, then each and every one of our jurisdictions is at risk of not being able to advance our most important transportation priorities. And so our ability to assure certainty, first and foremost, depends on our continued ability to make these allocations on a regional scale. So we've taken up this issue at the same time as Green Means Go, where we've been proposing to the state that we will double down on our efforts to achieve our climate goals. At the same time that we just adopted our RENA allocations at the end of last year, and the work of our new diversity, equity, and inclusion working group, all of which are pulling our regional transportation plan and our funding allocations towards region-wide policy priorities. Now, each of our jurisdictions have adopted similar priorities. We hang together in those priorities. There isn't a jurisdiction here that has not identified a need to produce additional housing, including affordable housing. There's a jurisdiction here that is not taking seriously the climate goals that we face as a region. But in the end, it is the region as a whole that is measured by those outcomes. The region itself has to meet the RENA obligation in addition to the individual jurisdictions. The region as a whole must meet the 19% climate target, not just the individual jurisdictions. And if the region fails at either of those, then it is each of us, each of our jurisdictions, that lose the transportation funding. For those of us that depend on the CEQA streamlining that comes from having a sustainable community strategy, we lose that. There are significant and profound consequences for each and every one of our jurisdictions if we don't get it right. So getting it right is really important. And one of the objectives that we've considered this through these 9 months has been how to maximize certainty, reliability, the sorts of things that public works folks are that we depend on them to make sure work in our cities and our counties. But at the same time, we must meet these other obligations. Secondly, we've talked about the formulas themselves. Like if we were to have a formula, if somehow we could wave a wand and not have to grapple with the challenge from the state and federal governments with respect to the ban on such formulas, what would a formula be? And this is something that our staff can only help on a little bit. They can give us forecasts and numbers, but ultimately what a formula is a fundamentally political decision. And it's one that has the potential of tearing our region and our board apart. And so we've looked at the formulas that have been put out there in Transportation Committee. We've discussed them, as a purely selfish parochial West Sacramentan. My preferred formula would be based on growth, looking directly into the front window of the car or of the streetcar or of the bicycle. What is coming next? And my city is expected to take on 250% of our share of new growth in the region coming forward. Other jurisdictions are different. Sacramento County is taking on 50 or 60% of its share, and that range is enormous across the region. But how do we meet that share? How does a city like mine that has agreed in the RHNA process to take on far more than our population-based share, how do we do that in the absence of making outsized transportation investments to accommodate it? The extent to which a formula looks only in the rearview mirror at population or lane miles or things from before, how is it that jurisdictions that as part of last year's RHNA process, when several jurisdictions around this table said, we cannot grow by this much. SACOG, please do not make our jurisdiction grow by as much as is in the RHNA forecast. And that was the RHNA allocations were accomplished because some jurisdictions agreed to take on an additional responsibility and yes, burden to produce that housing and that affordable housing, with the commitment that would come with the transportation resources in order to accomplish that. So a formula based solely on existing lane miles or population cannot meet that demand. At the same time, if you do what I would like to do, which is have a formula that is just based on growth, then what do you do about the jurisdictions that may not be growing much, but have a lot of roads that need to be maintained right now? And they're not going, the roads aren't going away even if their population aren't growing. The problem, and I thought it was really helpful, the charts that the staff prepared for us earlier this week, just to give us a sense about what these different formulas might look like, is that they vary widely by huge amounts. So that moving to a RHNA-based or SCS-based or growth-based formula would increase, Folsom's allocations by 1/3 compared to the population and lane mile formula that has been talked about by some of the public works directors. The swings for some jurisdictions are enormous. Now that might sound good if you just think, well, maybe I can get a formula that I would like. But I think as we looked around the table at the Transportation Committee and then on our Zoom call and said, well, I have to convince a majority of this committee and then a majority of the board on the formula that I like, but I may also get the formula that would devastate my community, that any of us might not win that battle. In fact, most of us cannot win that battle. Most of us would lose one way or the other in a formula. That's just math. I'm not prepared to take on that fight and to get into a bloodbath with other jurisdictions around this table in order to accomplish that. And in the Transportation Committee, I think each month we've made additional progress, and I know the other committees have been supporting that work as well. So as the initial staff report came forward and looked seriously at the proposal from Sacramento County and some other jurisdictions, trying to identify what are the core interests here at stake that we could all agree on. What are the improvements that could be made? What's really happening here? And what was said repeatedly was that what we really need is additional certainty. We need reliability. We need help. We need to not be filling out the same 16 applications for the same transportation project 16 different times. We need to know that, are we likely to get this one or not? Should we waste our time? My city's too small to fill out yet one more application. Or I could deliver this project a lot more cheaply if you would just tell me at the beginning, I'm going to get all the money for it and not have to apply for 4 years in a row. That there are a lot of process improvements, total quality improvements that could be made in order to make life easier for jurisdictions and allow us to deliver our projects more effectively, more efficiently, and maximize our draw on those state and federal funds. And I think the committee has been pushing hard on that and pushed for more time. This item, as you might recall, was supposed to be taken up by the board months and months and months ago. And the board and the transportation committee kept putting it off, saying, can we make one more improvement? Can we make it even better? Can we hear even more of the input and the feedback from the public works directors, but also from others in the region? And that work has produced the staff recommendation that came to the committees earlier this month and is before the board today. And that was, we've had vigorous debates in the transportation committee all year long. And the beginning of this month at our meeting was no different. But I want to very much acknowledge all of the members of the committee who kept their both hats on at the same time. I got my Elk Grove hat and my regional hat on. I have my Davis hat and my regional hat on at the same time, because we all do. None of us can afford to simply say, hey, I'm here for the region only, forget my jurisdiction. But also, none of our jurisdictions will get any resources or thrive if the region itself falls short. And so the committee worked very hard to arrive at a consensus. And I think we did what you asked us to do. And the vote from the committee was a unanimous vote with a couple of abstentions. And I don't want to minimize those abstentions because they were about real issues, but they were also about process and about the members of our committee said they need to go back to their councils again and check in one more time. But we've had an incredible amount of negotiation, of compromise, of discussion, the kind of work that would have made the students from YLA proud of what it takes to move forward on complicated, controversial issues. But I want to just put the motion on the table to adopt the recommendation that's before us. Obviously, that's not intended in any way to cut off what will be a robust and rich conversation today. To acknowledge the staff, to acknowledge the members of the committee and all the members of the board and our partners that have worked so hard in order to bring this forward. And also just to beseech you, as somebody who's been on this board for a long time and has seen the potential for us to come completely unraveled. This is perhaps the issue that has brought us closest to that point. Not necessarily the vote on whether to have a formula, although I think it's become pretty clear that it would not be legally permissible for us to do so, but opening the door to then having a debate after such a vote on what that formula is would be the equivalent of a regional intra-regional war, which none of us can afford, which none of our jurisdictions can afford. And if we're going to be proceeding to try to get $100 million or more in Green Means Go funding and preserve our authority to make the allocations that allow jurisdictions big and small to get their transportation projects focused, we need to stay together. We need to be in this together, and we need to move forward. This is not the final time we will take this up. I think this is the 12th regional funding round that I have voted on. So this represents an enormous step forward in terms of efficiency, predictability, reliability, and responsiveness to the jurisdictions that have raised both concerns and ideas. And we will have another funding round after this one very soon, that we will get to be able to make even additional changes after that. So we don't need to achieve absolute utter perfection today. We're trying to get to a funding round so that our jurisdictions can get to work submitting those applications so we can get those projects built. So with that, as I said, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to place on the floor a motion to approve the recommended action from staff based on the unanimous recommendation of the Transportation Committee. Thank you.
And Chair Frericks, this is Director Slowey. I'm driving, so I can't figure out how to raise my hand. So if I could,
hands on the wheel, that'd be good. Yes.
Okay. If I could speak for a moment. Thank you. And yes, I did bring this topic up back in March, and I want to thank staff.
Mr. Chairman, this is Saylor. I'm sorry, Jeff, but I'd like to, as a point of order, I'd like to second the motion that's been placed on the floor.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, sorry, Director Slowey, go ahead.
No problem. So again, a lot of staff time's gone into it. I think they've done a bang-up job. James and I have had several conversations on this topic. And, my original intent was to have the conversation. One, because a lot of work went, outside sources, public works groups, et cetera, got together. And I wasn't around in the beginning when, they switched from formulaic to where we are now. And at the end of the day, I do have to say that what's before us, it's not perfect. It's not what everybody likes, but it did bring some of the aspects of what public works groups brought forward. And I appreciate James and staff incorporating those. I do, understand, and after listening to a lot of conversations, I get that there's some potential legal issues. There are cases out there right now specific to that. I think one of the things that kind of was an aha moment for me was when Director Calderon, brought up, hey, our MTP isn't approved. And, we all know what's going on there. And is this time, really the time to upset the apple cart, so to speak? But at the end of the day, again, there's things that are in the current program that aren't necessarily to my liking, but I think it's every time we have the conversation as a group, we get better at it. And, we bring things forward that do make sense to a lot of people. So at this point, while it isn't exactly what I envisioned, I do support it. And I do think it's time for the debate to end and say, we had the conversation, good things came out of it. And again, I don't think it's the end of this conversation. But with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Farks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So I just want to thank you for that, and appreciate that you're driving and such. So wanted to just process before we've got a number of folks who want to talk. Obviously, I just want to make sure I want to go to the public comment I don't want to sort of turn off the debate, obviously, but it's important we get some public comment. And then we can come back. And I know that there are a number of folks, and I certainly see both directors, Peters and Frost, that want to speak. Director Chenier has also indicated that he wants to speak. So just, we will, I want to acknowledge that, yes, you have, I see the hands raised, my apologies, but let's just do the public comment first and then we can come right back. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair Farrix. We did receive a letter from Sacramento Regional Transit District, Henry Lee, General Manager. I'll go ahead and read that now. Dear Chair Farrix, as the SACOG Board considers item 12, 2020 Regional Funding Round Policy Framework, I want to thank staff for their thoughtfulness in creating a framework for dispersing the agency's discretionary transportation funding. COVID-19 has impacted all aspects of life, decimated local budgets, and highlighted glaring inequities in our economy. As the region moves forward with allocating prized transportation dollars, I want to thank SACOG for their regional vision that will help us recover. Since the outbreak of COVID-19, transit ridership nationwide has declined. SAC-RT's ridership decline has not been as precipitous as other transit agencies, as we are carrying about 40% of normal ridership on our system. In fact, this past July, SAC-RT's on-demand Smart Ride program experienced its highest ridership of any month since we launched in 2018. It is an essentially and convenient lifeline for many, especially those in disadvantaged communities. SAC-RT continues to deliver transformational projects that not only aid in the region's economy recovery, but also play a critical role in meeting the region's strict CARB, GHG, and VMT reduction goals. These projects compete well in statewide and federal programs, but it is critical to have SACOG support in local and regional funding to ensure that we continue to deliver these projects in spite of competitive and limited grant programs. Therefore, SAC-RT is thankful that the policy framework put forth advances economic prosperity, connects our communities, and invests in sustainable sources of transportation that will help our region meet our climate and congestion goals. And that concludes the public comment that we've received.
Great, thanks very much. Appreciate that. Just wanted to make sure we got that. And so we have, I've got a list going of Director Peters, Frost, and Chenier. Susan, go right ahead.
I have to start with, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Had a little confusion this morning. I want to speak for the Public Works proposal. There are at least 5 jurisdictions that support it, being Galt, Elk Grove, Folsom, Citrus Heights, and Sacramento County. And our goal is to have an alternative proposal. And unfortunately, the way things have gone the last several months, staff has been unwilling to, they've done many good things around the edges of the proposal of a targeted formula, but we haven't gotten to the elephant in the room, if you will. And I want to propose that we have an ad hoc meeting next week, if possible, with the interested jurisdictions, the SACOG staff, and a couple of our public works directors, and actually discuss this so we can see where we are, and with the goal of putting together an alternative proposal so the board can actually see what we're talking about. And I'm sure most of you have been contacted one way or the other. And there are some questions in my mind going on. As for instance, we got a letter from Transportation America, and then our staff at Sacramento County contacted Beth, sorry, I can't remember her last name, and she said a targeted formula could work and is working in other places. She also said devil is in the details, but we're willing to work through those details. And I feel that the way communications have had to proceed since the beginning of March with all this by telephone is not conducive to having an in-depth discussion where everyone feels like they were heard. And the county, Sacramento County, has a number of very large conference rooms that would hold 15, maybe 20 people. And so I would propose that maybe next week, if at all possible, that we would have this ad hoc meeting, and at either probation or regional sanitation. I've contacted a number of them. They are available, and we can work out an alternative for the next board meeting. So really only asking for a delay of 30 days. And I don't want to see this organization torn apart. It's done a lot of good work, but I really believe in my heart that many jurisdictions don't feel like they've been heard or maybe understood. I'm not sure. I know there's been quite a bit of confusion about the terminology difference between targeted and formulaic. And, honestly, I think we didn't know the definition difference between those two. Understand it now. Totally happy to use a targeted formula, and totally willing to work with SACOG. If we were to go to a targeted, we would work with SACOG. We're not suggesting that we would go outside the MTP SDS. All the projects would be subject to that, and a number of other things that are really hard to have a discussion about on the telephone like this. So I guess I would offer a substitute motion that we have a 30-day continuation, so we have a chance to discuss this and we can all be nice to each other after that.
I'll second that, Sue Frost.
Thank you. And that's all I have to say for the moment.
Great. Thank you, Director Peters. Appreciate that. Director Frost, you were actually just next on the list to speak anyway, so go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Frericks. Well, I'll try not to duplicate some of the comments of Supervisor Peters, but what I did want to say was, I know this conversation's been going on over time behind the scenes with the public works staff. It's appreciated that they've gone, they put a lot of time into trying to figure out how we can create some efficiencies and make our prioritize our funds and stack them and match them and meet our, our individual jurisdictions goals as well as the region goals. I want to point out that I believe there was maybe a misunderstanding. We were using the word formulaic, and we thought what we were meaning was we see it working in Placer County. We see this kind of targeted formula or target funding working in other counties. Placer has gets 80%, 20%. El gets 100%, and they work it out with their transportation agency. San Joaquin gets 75-25, Fresno 60-40. That Kern is also using this target funding. So there's confirmation that, you know, Chicago has had success, and it is the devil in the details. But I think what we're trying to accomplish, we're not trying to break away or create problems for SACOG. We still want to work closely with under the direction of SACOG with whatever projects we prioritize to make sure we're meeting our MTP-SCS and all of our other land use and other goals. I think what we're asking is if this, and I'm now speaking to the board, we want to understand this opportunity fully, and we want the whole board to understand it. And I think to have an ad hoc, you know, to have a meeting with all those jurisdictions who are interested in having this conversation so we can flesh out and get to the bottom of, can this work? And how can it work for us? It might improve the way we feel about the outcomes. Right now, we don't feel we have certainty, and we don't feel that we are able to prioritize those items that are, you know, realize those projects in our jurisdictions that are our priorities. We feel like there's people outside of us prioritizing us. We would just greatly benefit if we could make some adjustments. And we really want to have that a fair conversation around it. And this is a perfect time, since approving this funding round is another 2 years, and we can't come back for another 2 years. So to do it now, there's no STIP this year, there's no deadline that we have to meet. We have time to put this off for a month and flesh out, you know, what priorities what can we do with a targeted funding, and can it work? Why can't it work for us if it works for Placer County? And so I would like to see the ad hoc committee meet and create a funding round proposal that includes that targeted funding for those jurisdictions that are interested in that. And after that ad hoc, I would like to have a workshop or something that comes back to the full board. So the full board is in the entire conversation so that we can all make an informed decision, because, you know, we're hearing things from one person and then another, but I think we all need to be in the conversation around the whole issue in order for us to make an informed decision. So I don't know if that's an amendment, but what I'd like to see is the ad hoc and then followed by a workshop that informs the full board of, you know, the discussion and the results of the discussion, so that we have a chance, not just with a bunch of papers coming at us, but we all have a chance to receive a presentation on, you know, this whole topic. And so I do second Susan Peters' motion, and I wonder if she would be willing to add, followed by a workshop to the board on that.
Okay, thank you, Director Frost. Appreciate your comments. So we have the list I have going is Director Chenier, Director Takar, and then also Vice Chair Samayoa.
Is Susan, I asked a question if Susan would be willing to amend her motion to include a workshop.
My apologies.
That's okay.
So, yes, I'd be willing to accept that amendment. I'd like to have it pretty close together so we could get, you know, the eventual proposal back to the board of directors.
Thank you, Susan.
Great. Okay, so just to clarify, there is a original motion on the floor, a substitute motion on the floor as well, and we're still just having a variety of discussions. We've got Director Chenier, Director Takar, and then Vice Chair Samayoa with hands all raised. Go ahead.
I just, Vice Chair, I just want to clarify that right now we're talking about the secondary question, not necessarily the first question. I guess for me, I just want to move on, you know, get a vote at, you know, whenever we have, you know, this discussion on the secondary motion. So then, you know, wherever it goes. I guess I don't want to waste time on going back and forth between each question. Let's tackle the second question first, and then, in my mind, Chair.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So, I mean, then I would ask folks, and there are, you know, I think folks have comments that might span both items. So, but I would ask, I appreciate your sort of trying to direct it very much. I will have Director Chenier and, you know, and then Director Takar, and we'll see if we can get towards an action on the substitute motion.
Great. Thank you, Chair. First of all, I really want to thank staff, Matt and Garrett, for all the work that you put in on this. I know it was significant and substantial, and I was one of the people who said, you know, maybe we can do some more work on this. I think that what's happened here is something that we've had has gotten a lot better. And I think the staff has done a really good job on that. And it's gotten better really because we've listened. I've certainly listened to my public works people in the city of Sacramento about the goals that they had and the things that they thought we needed to achieve, which is really around certainty and predictability, as James talked about a little bit. And, you know, at one point, one of our public works people said, this compromise seems good. And my feeling was, it's not really a compromise, it's evolving. And it will always be a work in progress. I mean, that's the nature of politics and how we go forward. I also want to thank Director Cabaldon. I think his institutional memory is really important here as we think about these types of issues and how we do what we do at SACOG and the future of what we do at SACOG. You know, the board was not always together on all items. I think we've done a really good job, certainly since I've been on the board now for 5 years or so, of hanging together as a region and wearing both of those hats, that local municipality hat and the regional hat, and being able to balance those, but thinking about what happens in the region. Christopher mentioned pretty much all of this, but I just want to put an exclamation mark on a few things. I do worry about the risk with the federal government if we move to some kind of formulaic or even targeted, which probably you could classify as a formula as well. I certainly don't want to put us in the position of taking that risk, and that would require a lot more conversation with the feds about what they see as acceptable or not. And I'm going to come back to the time frame. Second, the metrics piece. As Sacramento has also taken on, the city of Sacramento has also taken on a far larger share on the housing front. What does that mean for us? And would we be willing to do that even if the transportation dollars were not done? We would probably get more under a formula depending on what the metrics were, but I don't know that you can balance that off against the risks that it would entail and what it would mean for the region. And I think we strive always to be a good regional player and want to continue that. We don't know what CARB would do with our 20-year plan if we move away from the competitive grant process and really being able to fit those pieces together to hit 19%. 19% is going to be hard enough as it is. without us having the ability at SACOG to really move those items into the right boxes, really, to meet where they go. I also don't know what would happen to Green Means Go. We've made a lot of pronouncements about why we need it and how it will affect the region. I would hate to see that go under, because I think there is a real possibility, if not this year, next year, of getting that. You know, finally on that, I do think we need to think as a region. That has benefited us quite a bit in the past. It's how we're known. We need to continue that, and I can see this and trying to develop some kind of formula as having a real adverse impact on the way that we think about that. You know, as I said, for the city of Sacramento, I know our public works people were one of the originals saying we need a formula. We've had a lot of discussions internally. I think they understand there's a greater good here. And even though we might get additional dollars under a formula, I don't think the benefits outweigh the costs of doing that. I also, as someone, you know, and many of us have spent hours and hours on this over the last 9 months. I don't see, frankly, how, with all respect to Ms. Peters and Ms. Frost, I don't see how 30 days gets us to where they would like us to go as far as figuring this out. We just spent 9 months getting to where we are today. 30 days to me on the metrics part, on the research that would need to be done. As I said, I do think that this is always going to be a work in progress. I would be more than happy to move forward on this today, understanding that there will always be another funding round, and that there is work that we can do, research that we can do, and options that we can explore. And I'm totally willing to do that, but going forward after today. So I'm going to oppose the substitute motion. I'm going to support the original motion, assuming we get back to it. I think that's the best thing that we can do for the region. And again, I want to thank staff and all my colleagues on the board. This is a difficult thing, but I think this is really pivotal in the future of our organization and how we do it. And I don't think you can underestimate the importance of that and how this vote goes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that very much. So just to be clear, I have 5 or 6 folks listed in order. So Sue Takar is next. The vice chair, I don't know if his comment earlier was just a process issue, but he would be next after that. Directors Inderico, Director Soon, Director Kennedy, and Director Leahy are the ones that I have listed in that order. So Director Takar.
Thank you, Chair Ferricks. Sue Tacker from Caltrans. I just wanted to, first of all, thank the SACOG staff for their work on the funding round proposal. We have had many opportunities for engagement for this funding round and input through the Transportation Committee, the board meetings, and the workshops. We've also had Matt Carpenter and his staff available to us to be able to ask questions and clarify our concerns, and we really appreciate all of the extra engagement and the feedback opportunities. Many positive changes in this application, the shorter applications, applying once for the project versus multiple applications over multiple funding cycles. We are hoping that we're going to be able to go forward with this funding proposal where we have certainty in funding projects fully and easy access to funds. I wanted to remind those of you that were involved in the US 50 ICM application that we had multiple agencies working with us trying to compete for the SCCP funds for US 50. City of West Sac, City of Sacramento, County of Sacramento, City of Rancho Cordova, City of Folsom, County of El Dorado, and we were not able to go forward with the application because we were not able to come up with $800,000. And that $800,000 could have resulted in $24 million of funds from the competitive programs. So it's very important for us to be able to have easy access to funds, quick access to funds, where we could discuss with SACOG and the board members that are sitting here with me today to make decisions and act on those opportunities quickly. The future competitive cycles will need about 50% match to be competitive. And that is one of our biggest source of funds for projects. Currently in the 4-county region, we have 530 central line miles per the handout that was provided by staff. And in those 530 central miles, that is 48% of the VMT that is carried on those 530 center miles. So if we're not going to be investing in the system, the traffic will impact local roads, causing severe system degradation. So the miles are few, but the benefit in maintaining those miles is going to be huge for all of us. So I just wanted to bring those points up as a discussion. Most importantly, having the security of funds, having the ability to make decisions quickly and efficiently is going to help us for future funding opportunities with the competitive programs, with the federal programs, and will make us all successful in the future. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Mr. Vice Chair, did you want to make any substantive comments here on this, or was it more process?
More substantive, but anyway, you know, for me, you know, it's a bit different for me. It's maybe the second year I've taken the leadership opportunity. Last year is in transportation, and now you guys offering me the vice chairship. I've learned a lot. I've grown a lot, and the bottom line is the time that we spent on this particular topic is has been very rich. And I'm not certain that the 30 days in addition will add. It might add a little bit, but I don't think it's going to add what we some folks here are looking for. The impact of this framework that is being proposed, I think is bigger than all the smaller projects. I think the sustainability of our region deserves the framework that allows competition to be the driving force to assure that the great projects that are going to maintain the economic and social livability and all the things that we really want to include in our region to be competitive with with the world. Our small city of 12,000 takes on 40 to 50,000 cars on a daily basis, and we have to deal with surface roads because people have to use surface roads to go around our 2 state highways to go through our city. We are in the middle of agricultural area, so we got tons of agricultural trucks going through our town. We have timber coming down from the hills. We have sand coming down from the. I mean, we our little 12,000 city is in the crossroads of tons of commerce, of people getting to work, and things like the 5th Street Bridge could not have been done by ourselves or by Yuba City. That we just completed that project, and it was an incredible project that is going to alleviate some of the Caltrans issues in some of our local streets, and also just getting people to work to the Sacramento County and other cities in our area. Those are the things that if we don't continue working as a region and look at a competitive way to get the best product, the best impact in our region to sustain our level of living and what we want to go, it would be really unfortunate to step back and look for ways that we can take care of our own roads instead of looking at what the region's benefit is. So I am against the secondary motion because I think if Maryville, if our region, the only way, and I thought Selena did an outstanding job, and I hope we record that and we use that as a message of what SACOG is all about, and it's our ability to work together, coming up with the best way to create the biggest impact. So I am totally against the second motion.
Thank you, appreciate it. So Director Underko, followed by Soon, followed by Kennedy, followed by Leahy are the hands that I have raised.
Thank you, Chair Fredericks. So I'm sensitive to both sides here. Being from Placer County, I wouldn't say we have a specific dog in this fight, but I do believe it's in Placer County and the region's interest to to remain united as a region. And so that's what's most important here. I'm not sure I've heard anyone push the nuke button as far as saying that, you know, if we don't get our way, then we're out. And I hope it doesn't get there. But preserving the united front here is got to be top priority. So I think that is, you know, coming from Placer County, that's our interest. So I do have a question of staff, however. If this were to be delayed, James, by a month or 60 days, what, if at all, how would this jeopardize any current projects, if at all? Can you speak on that, James?
Yeah, and this question has been asked. We don't have any hard regulatory deadlines, to be very clear in terms of timing. What we have, I think, is the process in front of us and getting those applications out the door. But we don't have any. There's nothing that is hard. We have the spring construction season, and we're mindful of that.
Okay. Well, you know, I've been on the side of where the transportation committee is coming from. They've spent a lot of hours and months on this, and to have that disrupted is incredibly frustrating. So I'm not tone deaf to that, and I appreciate all the work that the committee's done and all the work the staff has done to bring the plan to this point. So all of that is on the table as far as being conscientious about it. So, you know, I'm not even sure I have a position on this yet, but I'm glad we're having the discussion because, you know, like most things that we discuss, this is about the scarcity of resources, and somebody's not thinking that they're getting what they ought to, and the other side doesn't want to give up what they are getting. And so here we are, and I think discussions can bring out the best here. So I'm glad that the board is having the discussion. I know that is at the very least what Sac County wanted, and that was to bring this to a board level discussion. So having said that, thank you. Those are my comments. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you. Appreciate your comments. So Director Soon, Kennedy, Leahy, and Kozlowski.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Frerichs, board members. This is really a very good conversation. I appreciate the opportunity to partake. Director Cabaldon's and Peter's comments kind of gave me, you know, more thoughts on this matter that I'd like to share, but I'd like to preface it with just some, for the rest of my board members to hear some thoughts that I had or conveyed at the Transportation Committee. First of all, you know, as Director Cabaldon mentioned, we all have our hats, our specific jurisdictional hats that we represent, and along with a regional hat. And so I want to say that I do share that regional mindset. And I also think that part of a regional mindset is not just the common goals, but a recognition of when jurisdictions don't feel like they're being heard or, you know, getting their due share of things. I think it's incumbent upon all of us to consider that. And I think this is what we're doing here. For me personally, just my own city, my preference is about jurisdictional preference, meaning that all of us are guided by the MTP and SCS. I mean, that is the federal and state guidance that we have to abide by. That's, you know, that's, if you will, our Bible. I mean, we have to consider everything in there, those policies. And so when we talk about our funding rounds and how we award projects, I mean, that's our guardrails, so to speak. And so I think no one is disputing that. So I just want to set that straight. And then in terms of the process or the formulaic process, my understanding is that the federal government does provide us some funding for portion, you know, through its own formulaic process. my understanding is the RSTP funds are provided in a formulaic process. So the question I have is, would the federal government actually, not allow us to continue that if we distributed RSTP funds by their same formula? We would be consistent with federal guidelines. So that's something I was pondering when I heard the comments today. And that RSTP funding is a small portion, or of the total funding that we receive. And so, back to my comments of what I was saying at our transportation committee is, what's wrong with invoking a spirit of civic lab about trying something as a pilot, and then if it doesn't work, we can abandon and come back to what we're doing now. That's just, these are some thoughts I was having. So if you use the RSTP round as that formulaic pot, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, because the federal government is already giving it to you in a type of formulaic basis. So we can get away from the challenges that Director Cabaldon mentioned about how developing that formula, we wouldn't want to be inconsistent with the federal government. So that's what we would maintain that, and we would consult with the FHWA. Why wouldn't we ask them if they have an issue? I think if they did, then that would kind of answer the question for us too. So anyway, those are my thoughts. If considering the second substitute motion on the table, just for all my board members, if that's a conversation that is worth having, to look at a pilot project for a portion of the funding, and then consulting with FHWA to make sure that there wouldn't be a challenge down the road for certification of usage of funds. Anyway, those were the thoughts I had. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. So I've got Directors Kennedy, Leahy, Kozlowski, Cabaldon, Lozano, and Saylor.
Thank you, Chair. This is Patrick Kennedy. I wouldn't have accepted my position on SACOG board if I didn't believe in regional transportation planning. That's why this is so difficult for me, because we're in a different world now. When I had committed to supporting what was the original motion sometime back, that was when we were under the understanding and hope that we would have a Measure A in Sacramento County, which would have provided billions of dollars in funding for transportation. Well, because of the circumstances, we don't. And because of the circumstances, counties in particular are being hit extremely hard on our budgets because of the COVID-19 pandemic. That's something that's going to be felt for years to come. Even after there's a vaccine, we're going to feel the impacts of those budget hits. We're at the point at Sacramento County where we have no funding for transportation. We have no certainty for funding for transportation. We also have among the worst transportation network as far as roads and all that, and bike trails and complete streets and all that, in the region. I've moved from completely on one side to right directly in the middle on this. And what I've not had the opportunity to do, and perhaps I'll own this, should have called for it sooner. However, I think that most people sitting around the table would understand that we've all been a little preoccupied the last 6 months, is to get the people from SACOG in the same room with my transportation staff and those, at least the three of us that are on the Board of Supervisors, in the same room to really hash this thing out. And because, I'm being pulled from, like we all are, from all directions. I don't, being that even Director Chenier was right on with his comments. but he also did say that, he doesn't know what CARB would do. He doesn't know what would happen to Green Means Go. And then, James said that, 30 days wouldn't make a huge difference. So I don't think that there's any harm in all due respect to the late Christopher Cabaldon, all the work that's been done in the Transportation Committee, and I do respect it because they've done tremendous work in getting us from where we were to where we are today. But I'm just not prepared at this time to commit, and so I will be supporting the substitute motion, and would like to revisit this once we've had an opportunity to answer some of those questions.
Thank you very much, Director Kennedy. So I've got Directors Leahy, Kozlowski, Cabaldon, Lozano, Saylor, and Zaragoza.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
This has been quite the complex issue, and Cabaldon put the items on the table very clearly. And I understand that we are more regional and we have to think regional, but we also have to consider equity and all of our members, and the unity of our SACOG board is important to me. Okay. We've gone to a flow where it unifies us. We have a direction, we have a place to go, and that's all great and positive, and we need to continue that. And I respect, and I originally was on the one side of this because of our staff, and now I find myself in a different position. But having said that, I do believe that we need to have the open discussion about, and to be inclusive of all the directors and their jurisdictions. I really believe that, and because of what James said, there is no pressing thing or a timeline or a hard deadline like we've faced before. I would support talking about this openly as directors for one reason. We are the ones who have to make the decisions. We are elected to make the decisions, and we need to have all the information at our grasp to make those decisions. In this situation, we were given 4 reasons why it was a bad idea. We weren't given a reason why or how it could work or what it would look like or anything like that. I understand all the parameters, yet we need to at least have those options presented to us, in my opinion. Okay, so mine is just a matter of principle. We do need to have the discussion. We're having a discussion now, and that's great. But we need to have the information in front of us. And if this is me, if it's not an impending timeline, I do not see the harm in backing that second motion, because it just postpones it for another 30 days. I know it doesn't make much sense sometimes, but sometimes we have to actually be inclusive and listen to the disconsenting people, because they represent people too. They represent their communities. And so that's my 2 cents. I think we need to have the discussion openly with more information, because we need to be the ones that make the decision. And we're the ones that are going to set the course of where SACOG goes from here on out. And I believe in the unity. I believe James and the staff has done everything they can to make this thing come smoother. So I don't see I don't see what a delay will hurt. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. So Directors Kozlowski, Cabaldon, Lozano, Saylor, and Zaragoza.
Thank you very much. I'll keep my comment very brief. I hope that we never fall into the trap of making decisions based on sunk cost. And with respect to the enormous amount of time and effort that has gone into this thus far, while there is a significant part of our board and our staffs in our communities that believe that there's more room for improvement, we should seek to improve the plan further. And I thought that Director Cabaldon hit the nail perfectly on the head with one particular respect, that getting this right matters, and it matters that we get it right for everybody, and everybody's voice is included. So thank you very much for all the hard work that's happened to now. I think that we are headed absolutely in the right direction, but I agree with a number of people that the secondary motion should prevail today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your comments. So Director Cabaldon, Lozano, Saylor, and Saragosa.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for the opportunity to address this as with primarily with my West Sacramento hat on and taking the Transportation Committee hat off. I want to say first, I am not prepared to come to a in-person meeting on this topic. I am not attending events or meetings on the most fundamental issues of health and equity and poverty and everything else in my city. And although I understand this is important, I'm not willing to violate the norms of safety that at least we have in our county with respect to meetings, or to continue to filibuster this issue. Weekly at City Council, we have to take actions, and I know everyone around this table does the same thing. And being heard and getting your way on every single thing are not the same. We've had 9 months of hearing one another, and I was prepared to vote for the initial staff recommendation at the very beginning, and the dialogue, the debate, the discussion, the meetings have improved the proposal. But no other proposals have come forward. It isn't that staff didn't prepare anything. It's that we haven't had a specific proposal. And why might that be? Well, when the proposal was brought forward originally, the public works directors, my public works director reported back and said what was shared was a sheet showing what people would get if we went to a population-based or population and road mile-based formula. And several jurisdictions around the table said, hey, that would be great. I would love to get that figure, and to get that figure like guaranteed. I want that money. Let's go get that money. I'm on board. Of course, we didn't sign on because we're one of the jurisdictions that is disadvantaged both under the current system and under a population and road mile system. A year ago, as I said, when we took up RHNA, Sacramento County insisted that we modify RHNA in order to reduce their obligations. So Sacramento produces 50% of its share of the RHNA obligation for the region, Sacramento County. West Sacramento is producing 250%. So a formula that allocates transportation funding to meet that growth that's based solely on what does population look like yesterday is patently unfair. And there is no way that we ever would have agreed to a RHNA allocation on that basis, or to an MTP SCS allocation that assigned that level of growth to us uniquely in the region. Same thing, Marysville, as we've talked about an equity lens around these issues, using a population and road-based mile system. Marysville, with a much more significant population of folks in the environmental justice communities, loses out. Similarly, Live Oak, Yolo County, Wheatland, others who are doing more than their fair share on the reducing vehicle miles traveled and accomplishing our 19% goal, where Sacramento County is one of the lowest level producers on VMT reductions as part of that climate plan. Those jurisdictions lose out. Virtually everyone in a population and lane mile formula, from Folsom, which loses big, Galt, Ileton, Rancho Cordova, Sacramento, Live Oak, West Sacramento, Winters, Marysville, Wheatland, Yolo, Yuba, we all lose in a formula like that, whether it's based on growth, on equity, or around VMT. That's what's at stake here. So I fully understand why there is a proposal that folks will not let go of unless they get exactly their way, because it is directly about stealing money from one jurisdiction and moving it to another. And yeah, so it is a regional question, but what is happening here is just a tantrum until we get to a point where we agree to take money away from some jurisdictions and take it elsewhere. Now, I don't get that money today. That money, I have to compete for it, just like everyone else does. And we all share in that priority setting. We all share in the criteria. Our staff and our stakeholder groups all participate in the ranking committees. So we put up our projects and we take our chances. Sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. Most of the time, most of us win. And when we don't, then SACOG staff's there to help us out. But a formula that categorically and permanently disadvantages a majority of the communities in this region that are doing more than their fair share on both housing production, affordable housing production, the SCS and the MTP, and on VMT reductions is unfair. We shouldn't expect that folks are going to say, yes, I'm hearing you, and therefore I'm going to transfer 5% or 25% or 35% of my transportation money to your jurisdiction so that you can feel heard. Whether it's the European Union or the UN or any other collaborative, collaboratives like ours depend on the largest jurisdictions, depend on the 800-pound gorillas in our region, Elk Grove, Sacramento, and Sacramento County, to lead the region, to think regionally, to not put your own jurisdictions first above all others, but to think about these overall issues and to act as partners equal to the rest of us. Let's not fool ourselves. We wouldn't be here if Galter Live Oak 9 months ago had said, this is a key priority and please, we're insisting that you deal with it. We're dealing with it because it is our largest jurisdictions. I appreciate that. I understand that West Sacramento is tiny. But the consequences here are enormous, and let's not think that if we take another month, it's going to happen, because what we're talking about is money and about those real consequences. And if we move to a formula like this, population and road miles, you can be sure that some jurisdictions will be seeking the legal action and the legislative action needed to overturn that, so that those of us who've made our commitments on climate, on affordable housing, on RHNA, are able to accomplish those based on the commitment that this organization made, that the region made, that we were going to stand by our word and support the accomplishments of those policy objectives. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Director Walden. So I've got Lozano, Saylor, Zaragoza, and then Director Frost. And since we've actually, coming back to folks who've spoken previously at that point, we're going to seek to, have a vote on the substitute motion and sort of see how we proceed. Director Lozano.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be really brief. And I appreciate staff's work on this and the work that SACOG staff has done with the individual jurisdictions, public works directors and whatnot, and the phone calls from staff to the directors here on this SACOG board over the last several months, and it's certainly appreciated. I appreciate the work that the Transportation Committee did and the discussions and whatnot through that process, and that does not go unnoticed. I think for the Galt community, as well as looking at it from a regional perspective, one of the biggest things that really hasn't been mentioned here, at least for the smaller communities, is that we need just a little bit of predictability in funding, and I don't think it's an issue of wanting to disperse all of the funds in a manner that's determined, but just a little bit of say, let's look at competitive processes, and I think those are healthy when you're looking at regional issues and such. But I think that is kind of what we're looking at, and I would just like to have a further discussion, and will a month to do it? Who knows? But at least at the board level, I think we should have that larger discussion about what that might look like. And so again, I don't want to take up too much time, but I would be in support of Director Peters and motion, and hope that we could continue to work forward as a region like we have collaboratively over the last several years.
Great, thank you very much for your comments. So I have Saylor, Zaragoza, actually Stallard has his hand up, and he just as well. And I've got actually, Lynette just sent me a text saying that Director Gallardo is having trouble, technical difficulties as well. So I would like to also have her comment read as well. So actually, Lynette, would you do that, please?
Sure, thank you. Let me just pull that up. Director Gallardo states, like Director Onderco, she believes a strong united SACOG board is critical for our region. I'm hopeful that whatever decisions are made, we all keep in mind that mutual goal that benefits each of our jurisdictions. I do believe it is beneficial for all options to be heard, and that our Sacramento County representatives have every opportunity to discuss this at the board level. However, I am concerned about the late timing and any impact a delay may have on project. I think this discussion will certainly take longer than 30 days and recognize that the pandemic has impacted our opportunities for optimal communication. Would a commitment to moving forward with the current proposal and scheduling a task force and further or level discussion for changes over this next year meet the needs of both our current projects and Sacramento County for future planning? That may also provide an opportunity for Placer County folks to provide more clarity on our hybrid program if helpful.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate that. So I've got Directors Saylor, Saragosa, Stallard, and Frost, and I want to try and get us to a sort of conclusion on the, so we can take a vote on that.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. This is Don Saylor from Yolo County. Yolo County has a responsibility to maintain 752 miles of roads and 147 bridges. We have one of the smaller populations. We're a rural county. I think we have about 28,000 people in our unincorporated areas. Our Public Works Director came to us a few months back and said, "Look, here's this spreadsheet, and if we were to divide up SACOG's money by population, we'd get a few $1 million a year more, or a few $1 million over a period of time more than we would based on the historic acceptance of our project applications." And they were really excited about that because that would allow them to work more on those 752 miles and 147 bridges. But we looked at it and we said, well, you know, that's really exciting because we would then guarantee a minimum amount of predictable funding forever. And if we ever had a project that mounted to something, we would not be able to have much success in bringing forward a project that would be rated on the basis of data and performance and its contribution to the region as a whole. And we also looked at the likelihood that if our 752 miles of roads and 147 bridges were to become the most important thing in the way we think about our region and the transportation needs of the region, that we would be undercutting our colleagues and the communities in the rest of the region, not to mention the 4 incorporated cities in Yolo County. And we realized that sometimes, you know, the value of the whole is much greater than the sum of its little tiny parts. And so we voted this week unanimously 5-0 to support a rational decision-making process that's been developed and improved upon in the conversations over the past several months. The elements of this proposal that our Transportation Committee brings forward to the board with our recommendation of 9-0 with 2 abstentions is really should be mentioned here, that this is responsive to the themes, the trends, the impulse and the needs that our jurisdictions have brought forward. The need to have technical assistance and clear conversation early in the process so that the applicants know how they can apply and what the needs are and how they meet the goals of the region and how the criteria that we jointly arrive at work in determining what's most important. The idea of streamlining for multi-phase projects that last over a period of years, more inclusion of the public works and engineering teams in the rating process. I think those elements are improvements. And I think as Director Chenier mentioned, this is not a compromise that's presented here. This is an improvement that's based on having heard the true underlying interests that many jurisdictions in the region brought forward and weighing them carefully. This is not a coup by staff to be unrelenting and to not listen to the interests of others. It is a carefully thought through process that the Transportation Committee members, those of us who work hard on behalf of the entire board, sat together with our staff and had numerous conversations between staff at the SACOG table and staff in all of our jurisdictions to arrive at an improved process. And I think Mr. Chenier in our Transportation Committee meeting last week made a really important observation that none of this is immutable. And we have come to a place with this work where we have a workable process to move forward now. And we can look at this in the next year, as Director Gallardo has mentioned. We can look at this and see, well, did it achieve the objectives that we thought? Do these improvements in the process respond to the underlying interests that have come forward from Sacramento County representatives? And I think that's a reasonable approach. I want to mention that, like Director Cabaldon, I have no interest, none, in having a group of people come together in a room in person at this time. That's a wholly unreasonable expectation. And beyond that, if 3 members of the Board of Supervisors of Sacramento County were to be in that meeting, then that would be a violation of the Brown Act unless it was posted. So I think we have to be a little bit reasonable about what it is we're asking for and focus on the fact that being heard is not a matter of getting your way. I'm opposed to the substitute motion because I believe that the questions have been asked and answered. True deliberative process has taken place. We're at a place where we can go forward. I represent a rural region, a rural part of our county, of our region. My county colleagues, the 5 members of the Board of Supervisors of Yolo County, are proud to support the staff motion.
Thank you, Director Saylor. So we've got Saragosa, Frost, Stallard, and Sander.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to comment on Director Soon's comments. I thought they were an interesting one in terms of the RSTP dollars. Just to give some context, so El Dorado County, we do some of that RSTP funds, the exchange RSTP as a formula. However, the rest are done on a competitive basis, and those are the only funds that EDCTC actually has in a competitive formula. But that is something interesting potentially for SACOG to look at in terms of those funds on a formula basis. However, it's my understanding that those may be for small counties, so I don't know how that would work in the overall SACOG region in the 4 counties, but certainly I thought that was something to look at, as we talk about Green Means Go and some of these other things, if that was provide a little bit more of a sense of funding for some municipalities and counties. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Director Frost, then Stallard and Sander.
So I just wanted to respond. I'm hearing comments regarding, some members throwing a tantrum so we can take money from one jurisdiction. I'm hearing threats around lawsuits, and I just want to say this is not about taking money from other jurisdictions. In fact, the conversations, to my understanding, that have gone on with our public works is we'd be willing to give up more than what Placer and El Dorado are getting, just so there is money in the pot for those outlying rural and smaller jurisdictions who have big projects like a freeway interchange. And so if we could just get control of a little bit, just have some sense of what we know we're going to get every year on just a portion of it. So the conversation that's happening has happened behind the scenes with Public Works and maybe SACOG staff, but James Corliss wasn't in there. So there were decisions that couldn't be made because staff couldn't make those decisions at that level. And then on the same token, the board members haven't been in the conversation. And so we're the ones, all due respect, that make the decisions around the funding round. And I think it's fair for us to have an understanding of this. There's been a lot of, you guys are, Chris Cabaldon, you're so smart, you talk so good, and all that. I so respect you, and I respect all of you, and we are wanting to be team players. We're just asking for a chance to have the conversation. And so we're not trying to filibuster. We asked and we couldn't seem to get it over time. Over a year, where we kept asking this to come to the board. It was asked to come to the board in December. And we can't get the conversation. So we're just saying, we're doing research. You know, when we get pushback, we're going and making calls to those jurisdictions and, Federal Highway Administration and all these people who are saying, yeah, it's doable. You know, we're finding out that when we understand what we're asking for and what it's called, and what they understand what we want, that there are possibilities of that might make it a little more equitable, a little bit better for us. And it's not just Sacramento County, it's 5 or 6 jurisdictions in SACOG. And I think that's meaningful. And I think it's fair. There are some jurisdictions who have the advantage of this targeted formula funding. And the others of us do not. And so to not even allow us to all be in the same room to have a conversation doesn't seem fair. And I urge every one of you board members to vote yes on the substitute motion, and just give us a month and let us have the conversation. And then if that doesn't pass, I urge you to vote no on this funding round, to bring it back and say, let them have the conversation. Let them have the conversation. It's fair. And, I think one last important consideration is this, how we feel about this JPA. And, you're asking us to have a regional feeling and, to support the region. We want to support the region. We're even having the conversation around, can we give up a little more of our funds to the region so that, it can, make it better for those outlying smaller communities. So it's not like we're trying to get more than our share or take money from another jurisdiction. We're just trying to figure out how we can find efficiencies and maximize the money that does come to us. And so I urge you to vote yes on the sub motion. And if it doesn't pass, I urge you, please vote no on the funding round, not out of disrespect for SACOG staff who have worked so hard and come a long way. It's just not quite there. And we just want to have a little bit more on the conversation. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Director Frost. So Directors Stallard and Sander, and then we're gonna go to take a vote on the, I think, summary and take a vote, see where we're at on the substitute motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, fellow members. These are tough issues. We get one about, it seems like once a year, sometimes less often, but I sometimes think it brings out the best in us because it makes us really talk honestly with each other and as persuasively as we can as well. And I've heard what I think is a pretty good conversation today. I just want to affirm, I've lived through direct allocation, and it was not, we were not a very good agency. In fact, we were a poor agency. And since we've moved to essentially more of a competitive realm, we've become an award-winning agency, and we have a great reputation, not only with fellow agencies that do similar work, but with the people who provide these funds to begin with, the FHWA and the state. James has made the point to us that we get actually more money than we otherwise would because of the reputation we have for delivering quality projects and completing them on time. I think he mentioned the figure $20 million. And I believe him because of his expertise when he says that the allocation, some kind of automatic allocation, is a disfavored approach. And obviously it would degrade our reputation by those who provide the bulk funding. So it's not a direction I want to go. I also believe that we all benefit from the improvement of the transportation system regionally. I've pointed out many times that half of the people who half of the working population in Woodland leaves my community each day and goes to your jurisdiction. So I have to care about the roads they take to get, as well as the roads within your jurisdictions. Correspondingly, half of the jobs in Woodland are filled by people who come from elsewhere. So I always say at the end of the day, the real provincials are us. Our people are regional in their behavior. And we should all appreciate and respect the importance of having the best system we can for everybody. I also think there's a number of objectives which are better dealt with on the regional level than they can be on the individual level. I know the pressures that are on our public works people to fix the roads. None of us have enough money. No matter what we do today, we'll still not have enough money. So that's unfortunate, but it's a reality, and we have to do the best we can. Add more water to the soup, whatever it takes. We just have to cope. But to take apart what I feel is an effective approach to regional distribution of funding, to me, is a backward step, a degrading step to the quality of this organization. And our unity, as important as it is, should incorporate those objectives as well. So I think when we attack those objectives, which I feel the alternative proposals, as it's presented in general terms, because we have no specific recommendation, I think would take us away from the thing that makes our unity possible. And I think that degrades our efforts to make our case for green means go. We've got to fill that 19% gap. If some of our projects go forward because you have an automatic right to a certain amount of funds that do less than what we would otherwise seek to do, we might find the 19% becomes 20% or 21%. And those are the kinds of things that make it, then it would be almost impossible for us if it isn't already impossible. Anyway, I really believe, now I'm an economist by training originally in law, and before I went to law school, and I believe in opportunity cost. You do what you do at the expense of what you could have been doing. We have 9 months of effort into this. I don't understand how someone says he couldn't meet with James. James was at the Policy and Information Committee both times the issue was discussed at the committee level. We take public comment at the committee. People were free to participate in those discussions. I wasn't at the Transportation Committee, but they obviously took the lion's share of the burden. So I care a lot about unity. I care a lot about the success of this organization because I feel it's our best hope for the region. I think that's why the Metro Chamber, and I think that's why Greater Sacramento Economic Council said, stay the course on this. The improvements are in there. It'll make it better. It should make it easier. But I'm sorry, it's only half a loaf for those. I would rather we defeated the substitute motion and have the vote on the main motion. And if it succeeds, it succeeds. If it fails, it fails. That will achieve the objective of requiring more discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Stallard. Appreciate that. Director Sander.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I could probably just in large part second what Tom Stallard just said. So I'll be brief. You know, we absolutely have to remain united as a board and a region. I'm a little unsure as to what, after 9 months of working on this topic, still has to be uncovered or brought up. That's a little fuzzy to me. I don't know, maybe there's a moving target here, and we're just slow to learn and keep up with where the discussion is. I'm not sure why 9 months has not been enough. Certainly, though, I think, and I've heard this across the board, we've heard an awful lot of improvement in our current process based on this discussion. So that has been a healthy thing. And I don't doubt there's probably a little more that you could get out of it with more discussions. The question is, do we need it now? Can we do it on an ongoing basis is a real question. You know, the really big problem is we are being driven by yesterday's decisions, right? We've got all this transportation infrastructure that's been built. We don't have enough money to maintain them. None of us does. We've got these crises in all of our community, and our staffs are not happy, and our population is not happy about that. We have an inability to maintain what we have on the ground, and that's what drives little fights or struggles over the few resources we do have. You know, it's probably the most shocking thing that I learned getting elected to a city council is how poorly funded we all are on transportation maintenance. So, you know, I think there's two answers here. There's two solutions. One, we need to absolutely maximize our regional resources, which means we need SACOG to be the top performing agency of its type in the country to maximize the amount of resources we can bring in from the state and federal sources. Doing that seems to require that we have by and large, mostly competition in how we distribute funds, because that helps us get to a good position of competition at the regional level. So it's in all of our interest to be sure that SACOG has that sort of preeminent role of, this is a great agency, we can trust them with more money. And the second part, and this is probably not what everyone at SACOG wants to hear, or certainly even staff wants to hear. I think, colleagues, when it comes to your own jurisdiction, you've got to watch out for your own and probably pursue local measures to deal with these problems. I've had leadership positions in the State League of Cities, the National League of Cities, and at most of our meetings, our colleagues are sitting around hoping for money to come from somewhere else to solve their problem. And in 20 years of sitting around at those meetings, I have yet to see money come from another source to solve one of those problems. We've got to watch out for our own, whether it's Measure A, whether it's Rancho Cordova doing our very own, basically transportation measure this fall after the failure of Measure A. You've got to find out a way to deal with it on your own, and don't damage the region in trying to do that. It's two levels of a solution. So I'm worried about that loss of bonus. I'm worried about the competitive status of SACOG. But I do want to thank staff and all the colleagues, all the board members here for your work on this process. I think we've made good progress. I hope we continue to make more, and I hope we stay very collegial and united as a board and a region. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate that very much. I just want to, before, I'd like for us to go to a vote on the substitute motion, but I just want to make a couple of quick points. Some of the things I heard in some of the discussion, but also, I really frankly haven't had much of an opportunity to weigh in personally myself. And so, so addressing a couple of points. Firstly, that SACOG staff, I've heard, these are some of the things I've heard, right? Over the course of, not today alone, but over the course of a number of months. Not enough outreach or engagement. I think SACOG staff has done a remarkable amount of engagement, which started with a professionally managed, set of listening sessions, workshops in the spring and April as well, a webinar, broad engagement session in July, and then copious amounts of one-on-one engagement and outreach and, and group engagement in late July and early August. I know that Matt and Garrett and James have been fielding, tons of calls, participating in many Zoom sessions, and taking time to walk us through the materials and recommendations. The discussion is also pointed and raised about SACOG staff did not bring an alternative to the board that includes a formula. Well, it's true that there isn't a pure formula alternative in front of the board. That was intentional. I know for a fact that staff took a lot of time debating and discussing this idea. A pure formula isn't in front of us because of all the risks inherent in that approach that obviously we've heard today, but also staff has outlined the risks of us being less competitive for state transportation grants, potentially being cut off from some SB1 programs, and the risk, frankly, of getting on the wrong side of FHWA, as it's been outlined in the letter from Transportation for America. And we, time will tell what the FHWA actually says with regard to how we should be proceeding. I think, we also, we recognize that the support is not unanimous, but I recognize how much staff work has been done to bring agencies along, and with the major changes that have been proposed. I think we're also, there was a discussion about sort of a pilot program, to test a formula. I think we are testing an approach in the staff recommendation that accomplishes a lot of the same goals as a formula allocation. It's the proposal that we each, have each local jurisdiction ranking their projects. That seems like, Frank, to me, an important pilot test. That's a big change in this proposal from how it's previously been done. And then with regard to the discussion around, delaying a vote for another 30 days, I think a couple of things. I am always somebody who wants to have collaboration and bring people together, particularly in person, to discuss these types of things and see if we can hammer out some sort of mutually acceptable resolution. But I would say that, there are concerns about continuing a further delay, and which is that, we are, particularly around getting behind on awarding projects and frankly, getting bids out the door for spring and summer construction season next year. So, those are just some of the items that I've certainly heard as themes over the course of the past couple of months, as well as some of the items that came up today, and wanted to address those. I would, at this point, like to move to a vote on the substitute motion. I firstly would like the substitute motion restated by the board secretary and then board clerk, and then we will go to a roll call vote on the substitute motion.
Thank you, Chair Frerichs. The substitute motion was a 30-day continuance to discuss the proposal with an amendment requested by Director Frost, which Director Peters agreed to, that a workshop would be held for the full board. Did I capture your motion correctly, Director Peters?
Workshop after the meeting with the ad hoc.
Yes.
Great, I appreciate it. So yeah, thank you, Lynette, for that. So if you would be willing to go to a roll call, that would be appreciated.
Thank you, and thank you again for your patience. Allard?
No.
Cabaldon?
No.
Douglas?
Yes.
Yeah.
Flores?
Yeah.
No.
Sorry, Director Flores, was that yes?
No.
It was no. Thank you. Frerichs?
No.
Frost?
Yes.
Gallardo? Director Gallardo? Okay. We might have lost. No?
No.
Okay, thank you. Gore?
Yes.
Harris? Boomgarden, excuse me.
Yes.
Jankovitz? Director Jankovitz? Okay, I'll move on and come back to him. Jennings?
Who did you say?
Jennings?
No.
Joyner?
No.
Kennedy? Director Kennedy?
Aye. Can you hear me?
Yes, I recorded it as I. Kozlowski?
Aye.
Leahy?
Yes.
Lozano?
Aye.
New? Director New?
No.
Onderko?
No.
Peters?
Yes.
Tamayoa?
That's a no.
Sander?
No.
Zaragoza?
Yes.
Saylor?
No.
Chenier?
No.
Slowey? Sorry, Director Slowey is unavailable at this time. Spokley?
Yes.
Stallard?
No.
Thune? Director Soon?
Sorry, yes.
Thank you. Tixa?
No.
Veercam?
No.
West?
No.
And then trying once more for Director Jankovitz?
No.
Thank you. Let me just calculate the vote. The motion failed.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that update, Lynette. So there is now the underlying motion. Are there additional?
Dan.
Yes, go ahead. I thought I heard someone say there's a. Sorry. I don't have any hands raised, so I'm gonna, if people do not feel a need for, if there are any other directors that haven't yet spoken that want to speak, love to hear that now. Otherwise, we will go for we'll move to a roll call vote on the underlying motion.
Thank you, Chair Frerichs. And this is the motion for the staff recommendation. Director Allard?
Yes.
Cabaldon?
Yes.
Douglas?
Aye.
Flores?
Yes.
Frerichs,
Yes.
Frost,
No.
Dialdo,
Yes.
Gore,
Yes.
Harris, or excuse me, Baumgarten,
Yes.
Jankovitz,
Yes.
Jennings,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Kennedy,
No.
Kozlowski,
No.
Leahy,
No.
Lozano,
No.
New, Director New. I'll come back to you on Derko.
People have lost, I think, the ability to unmute because that's, I mean, I'm having a hard time unmuting folks now too. So I just want to be, I think.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair Frerichs. Director New, your vote on the underlying motion, I'm sorry, was what?
Yes.
Thank you. On Derko,
Yes.
Peters,
No.
Samayoa,
I say yes.
Sander,
Aye.
Zaragoza,
Yes.
Saylor,
Aye.
Chenier,
Aye.
Lowy is no longer attending. Spokely,
Yes.
Stallard,
Yes.
Soon,
Yes.
Tiksa,
Yes.
Beerkamp,
Yes.
West.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion fails.
No, it passes. It passed.
No, I'm not. So we need to have probably Kirk might need to step in for a second, but I believe, I'm not sure that it does pass, and particularly because of the condition of I think the county supervisor sort of threshold. So, but we can have explanation from legal counsel as needed. Or James, I think he said he's having a hard time talking too. So let me.
I think that's correct, Lynette. If you can just record the votes, I believe it fails for the lack of a majority of the county votes. Is that correct?
Yeah, why don't I go ahead and display my screen? Would that be helpful of the spreadsheet? That will show how it failed.
Yep, that would be great.
Okay, let me go ahead and do that. Just take me 1 second. All right. Can you see that yet?
Yes.
So can you explain, it's the percentage of the population, correct?
Right. Kirk, our general counsel, would you like to have any commentary on this item?
Yes, I believe it fails for the lack of a majority of the individual county board members voting for the item. Can you scroll down, Lynette? Oh, I'm sorry. So do you show how many county board of supervisors voted for it and against it, Lynette?
Yes, no problem. So the motion shows that we had 4 county members in favor and 4 county members not in favor.
So it fails to obtain a majority of the county board of supervisor members voting, which is one of the 3 thresholds required to take action by the board.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. So appreciate everyone continued participation here. So substitute motion has failed. The underlying motion has also failed for lack of the threshold of county members in support. So how would folks like to proceed? I'd look for firstly James provide some commentary. I see Director Frost has her hand raised, as well as Director Peters. James.
Well, obviously, we were hoping to get some direction one way or the other day from the board. Why don't you have the directors speak, and I can always chime in.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. So I've got directors Frost, Peters, and Cabaldon. Hands raised. Go right ahead, Director Frost.
I would respectfully ask the board if they would consider allowing us to have the conversation with the original motion that Susan Peters made, which is to continue this item and allow us to have the conversation with an ad hoc committee, followed by a workshop afterwards to inform the board, followed by a September meeting that would settle the matter.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Director Peters.
Yes, I was just going to suggest that the substitute motion be put back on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Director Cabaldon.
Yes, given that the prior motion has already been voted on, I would simply move to continue this item until the following meeting without any further directions. Any other proposals or options may emerge by any process from any of the jurisdictions or the staff, but rather than the specific substitute motion before, which required the in-person meeting and yet a fourth committee consideration or all of that, rather than constrain the decision process before. I mean, we obviously we can't reach agreement today. The first motion failed based on 2 of the tests, and the second one based on 1. So we're not going to reach agreement today, and perhaps cooler heads in any framework over the next 30 days or whatever the month is can arrive at a solution. So I would simply make this the simple motion to continue this item until the September meeting.
I second.
Okay, multiple second.
Point of order.
Yes, Director Frost. Yeah.
I kind of felt like Susan and I were putting a motion back on the floor. So is this a substitute motion?
I didn't make it in the form of a substitute because the prior motion had already been considered and voted upon and would require a motion to reconsider. So I was just making a novel.
Or I can make a substitute motion. I'll make a substitute motion after you to request that we go back to the original motion. And I implore the board, why can't we have the conversation? It's 30 days.
So I'll just say I don't see anything in Director Cabaldon's motion that doesn't allow for that conversation to occur. I would say this,
Actually, there was something. He wanted to go back to explain, Christopher, right?
I merely moved that we continue the item till the next meeting. No further direction. I didn't move to refer it back to the Transportation Committee or any other procedural mechanism.
And that wouldn't stop us from having an ad hoc meeting.
Correct, and that's correct. And I was in the middle of saying that you have certainly my commitment as the chair to assist with this process and engage fully. Even I think I've been doing that all year, but fully can continue to engage in this process over the course of the next month. There's no formality of setting up some official working group or whatever. People who want to participate, or entities, agencies that want to participate can participate. But the item will come back for consideration at the September board meeting, and there is no prohibition on other sort of activities between today and the September board meeting.
Mr. Chairman, this is Saylor. One thing I want to be extremely clear on is I want this board to not compel our staff to appear in a personal meeting in person anywhere at a time when we are undergoing very careful, cautious response to a pandemic. So you can do whatever the hell you want, but don't make people show up in places they ought not be.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I would not attempt to subject anybody to an in-person meeting that they were not comfortable attending. So we will provide, I think options are able to be provided if it can be done, which I think is the case, safely in person, all for some individuals, but also have a, virtual component. I think that's also particularly doable. So, but again, the motion on the floor is to move, to continue this item or have this item heard at the September board meeting.
And Lucas, can I say something here?
Of course, yeah. And I've actually got Director Kennedy with his hand raised as well too. But Director
Yeah, very quickly, if others, so I'm going to support Christopher's motion on this. If others are going to bring other proposals in, I would ask that they not be, put on our desk the morning of the meeting, but that there be sufficient time to do analysis of the ramifications of any proposals that would be coming forward.
Understood. Okay, appreciate that. That makes a lot of sense. So I have Directors Kennedy and then Director Frost would like to speak again.
Thank you. I'm speaking in support of Director Alden's motion. I do think that, as Director Stollard said in his support of the underlying motion at the beginning, that if we voted on it and it went down, that would give the opportunity to have the conversations that we're talking about. And of course, I completely agree. It goes without saying, I think we all do, with Director Saylor, in that there will be no compelling anybody to attend a public meeting or in-person meeting at this time. But I appreciate the deliberation of the board, and this does give an opportunity to answer some of the questions that came up during the actual debate or discussion that I think we'll be able to make even after the 9 months, because again, I will stress, we're in a completely different place than we were 9 months ago. The world's a different place. So I think this will give an opportunity to discuss that. And I also agree with Director Chenier that if there is a alternative that's going to be brought forward, that it be given the time that it's deserved, that we deserve to actually evaluate it, and staff does. So I'll be in support.
Chair Frerichs.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead, James, please. Sorry.
All right. Obviously, a lot of staff work was.
James, I apologize. And Director Frost I just want to recognize Director Frost still would like to speak. So, but go ahead, James. Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying earlier, we were hoping to get some clear direction. Clearly, you have given us direction, right? Which is the board did not support the recommendation as it stands. And so you have my word, and you have a professional staff. We're going to do whatever it takes to come back to the board and work on the questions you've raised and balance some very tough interests that we have to balance here. But we'll do that with transparency. We'll do that with engagement. You have my word on that. And I think part of the reason that you're around this board and you speak so eloquently on the issues of the importance of this region is because you do have a staff that cares about that. So I don't know that we need a lot of specific direction, but I can tell you we're very happy to engage with the county. We're happy to engage with all the other stakeholders we've been engaging with, and we'll get back to work.
Mr. Chair.
So actually, I got Director Frost and then Director Stallard. Yes.
Yes, Chair Frerichs, I wanted to clarify the motion because the motion is to continue, I believe, to continue the item, which would imply that the same formula is coming back to the board in September. And what we were requesting was an opportunity to have the conversation and discuss a possible alternative funding formula that would be more equitable for some of the jurisdictions. And so if you're continuing an item, I believe it's the same item coming back versus dropping this and coming back in 30 days with the proposal. And based on what James Corliss just said, he's willing to have the conversation with us so that, and I think we're happy to do it via a phone conversation on Zoom. I'm sensitive to that, but I want to understand the motion. I want clarity on that motion.
Okay, thank you. Director Stallard, then I would seek some clarification from Director Cabaldon on the motion.
I think it's fair to observe that the motion had 24 votes in its support, 6 opposed. It was a clear win among the cities. The county was tied 4-4. So basically, out of our respect for our process of voting, the motion fails because we had a tie vote among the supervisors. One vote the other way would have put this matter to rest. We could have discussed it further. We have another opportunity in 2 years. Instead, I feel like we're going into a dark hole. And I think it's hard for the staff. It's hard for us as a board. It's hard for us as an organization. I accept the decision, but with great reluctance. And I would hope those 6 who voted no would recognize that they're leveraging their minority to it in a way that I think is pretty tough on our organization. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that. So if I could ask Director Cabaldon just for a bit of clarity with regard or restating or just a capping of the motion.
Motion is simply to continue this item, this recommendation to the following meeting, understanding that as I think several directors said, folks anybody can bring forward alternative frames, alternative proposals during that time, but recognizing that just as this item, this staff recommendation was the basis for a very rich, deep, long discussion by the board, that next month can generate the same opportunities. And also in deference to what Director Stallard just said, which is that the vote did not reject this proposal. The vote simply couldn't pass any proposal today, and leave open the options for folks to bring forward alternatives. But this is the item that our board governance process has put before us, and we have to have some basis for a public agenda to be released next week. So it would be, next month. So it would be this one, but without precluding in any way or putting a foot on the scale against any other potential alternatives that may emerge.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I think that is quite clear.
So just, excuse me, Chair Ferris, I just want to clarify. So this exact item will come back. There's no room for any change based on any discussions that we have over the next 30 days. If we want to bring something different, it's outside this item that will be on the agenda. This same item will be on the agenda. Sorry.
Knock yourself out. See if you can come up with something that can pass. How about that, Sue?
Okay, so there is no room for, so this is the same item that's coming back, regardless of any discussions we have.
Yeah, alternative procedure. This is the item that has been brought forward, not just by the staff, but by this board and its committee, including representation from Sacramento County. We could schedule it for the Transportation Committee again at the beginning of September and have that be the venue by which alternatives could be considered, and therefore a new alternative could come from that committee directly to the board in a month. I simply think, given that the breadth of interest among this board is broader than that, and that would force a rapid time frame because the Transportation Committee meeting is so soon from now, and so that simply continuing the Transportation Committee's recommendation and the staff recommendation for a month, while explicitly inviting others to bring forward proposals that might pass all 3 of those thresholds is a fair, appropriate mechanism for everyone to be heard and to have their shot in a month.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Director Cabaldon. And I believe I still have the floor, which I wanted just to close by saying that's not what we were that's not what we were requesting. What we were hoping for was that we could have an open discussion with the idea of looking at some potential opportunities that could work better for us. We're flexible in that conversation, but if it's a hard, this is what you get, and any discussion we have after this is going to be outside the agenda item, I'm still not able to support it because I'm hoping I can I'm hoping the board members will let us have an opportunity to work it out. I'm hoping you will let us have the conversation and work it out. We can do it on the phone, you guys.
Understood. So nothing is precluding, though, this has been said several
No,
times.
he said, knock yourself out. You can bring another proposal, but this is the agenda item coming back. I'd like to see 2 proposals come back.
Then make one. Then make a proposal. Make a proposal.
I'd like to drop this and then agendize, you know, some alternative options so that we have the information on both options. We're not just bringing it to a conversation, but it's part of the agenda item. That's all. I'm just saying, you know.
Okay. So again, I think of myself as a pretty honest broker. Sure. One second, Mr. Vice Chair. I'm committing to working, you know, with folks who want to work on this, you know, between now and the next board meeting. And so that's just one aspect of this, but Mr. Vice Chair, go ahead.
Well, we already took on that vote. The question that Director Frost keeps bringing up, we took that vote and it failed. So I guess, you know, let's move on the vote for the motion by Mr. Cabaldon.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So
I'm clear. The vote is that we're bringing it back, but if we bring an outside proposal, will SACOG bring that proposal?
Mr. Chairman, can I make a point of order for the board?
Please go ahead. Thank you.
So a board member can bring forward an alternate motion at any time, and certainly information can be brought to the board through public comment and otherwise if a board member has information or an alternate motion with respect to the funding framework that they'd like to bring forward. There's nothing that prevents that at the time the item is considered a month from now.
That's different than working with us for an alternate proposal. And so I don't feel it gives us an opportunity to have an open opportunity for different options. You know, Darren Suin suggested there were some possible alternatives that might have worked. So
I'll just.
I'm sorry we couldn't.
Mr. Chair, seeing no hands up, would you please call the question?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Director Kennedy. Appreciate that. I just want to say one quick item, and we will go to a vote. But you know, I know we've not had many meetings in person this year, and only the first couple of months. But I will tell you though that anybody that has, I've reached out to a lot of directors over the course of, and it's been a complete dumpster fire every year, no question, hands down. That will be what the definition in the dictionary shows, 2020, and continues to this day, and probably for the next couple of months. But I have not had anybody come to me with the Public Works proposal other than we did get a letter from Sac County recently about it, but no individual directors have really come and said, here's the proposal. This is, you know, let's, you know, so just the notion that it's, you know, the proposal cannot get a hearing or, you know, agendized or whatever. I think that's you know, that's inaccurate. So I'm going to call the question, and we have a motion on the floor. And Lynette, if you're willing to just one final time, just restate the motion, or as you've captured it, and then we will go to a roll call vote. Thank you.
Thank you. As I understand the motion, Director Cabaldon recommends bringing this item back to the September board meeting, which would not preclude any other proposals, which would be a continuation of the item. Did I capture that correctly, Director Cabaldon? Okay, thank you. Shall I go forward with the vote?
Please.
Thank you. Allard? Director Allard? Okay.
You may
I'll
have keep going.
Sure, I'll keep going. Thank you. Cabaldon?
Yes.
Douglas?
Yes.
Flores? I'll come back to Flores. Frericks?
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
Dialdo. I'll come back to her. Gore,
Yes.
Boomgarden,
Yes.
Jankovitz. Okay. Jennings,
Yes.
Joyner,
Yes.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Kozlowski,
Yes.
Leahy,
Yes.
Lozano,
Aye.
New,
Yes.
Onderrico,
Aye.
Peters,
Yes.
Tamayoa,
Aye.
Sander,
Aye.
Zaragoza,
Aye.
Sailor,
Aye.
Chenier,
Aye.
Chloe is absent. Spokely,
Yes.
Stallard,
Yes.
Thune,
Yes.
Pixa,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
and then just one more time, just to make sure, Allard, Flores, Dialdo, Jankovitz. Okay, I'll register them as absent. Will just take me one moment, but let's see. The motion does pass.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, so I'm gonna, frankly, just for the sake of time, I'm going to propose that we do not take up the next item, the last action item, which is the charge for the Race, Equity, and Inclusion Working Group. It's the working group's been established. There's work underway. There's a staff report. Very important that we do take up and approve the charge, frankly, unless there's a majority of the board that wants to just sort of quickly take that item up. But my sense is that folks are ready to move to adjournment, and I think we can absolutely still continue the work of the body and take up the charge at the September board meeting. Anybody have any disagreements with that, either or questions with regard to either the staff or also board members, the vice chair? Feel free to chime in.
I agree with you, sir.
Great, thanks, appreciate that. Okay, I'm not hearing any others. So then let's, so the last few items are all informational. Let's see. So chair's report, we'll move that along. Any board member reports, and then if not, we'll go to James for executive director's report and for final comments, and then we will be adjourned.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize for this, but I want to call attention to the photograph behind me. That's Lake Berryessa. That area is on fire.
Yes, thank you, Director Saylor. Appreciate that. It's only August. So James, brief executive director's report, any comments, and then we will be adjourned.
Maybe my toughest task of the day so far is to let you all go. The one thing I do know that there's been a lot of questions about is what's happening with the bike share program in the 3 jurisdictions. And I do want folks to know, because we've had a number of public comments. We continue to work on that. We believe we will have some news to share soon. So stand by. As you know, in the pandemic, the jump bikes were pulled. So we're hoping to have something for you. Our staff is actively working with the staff from our jurisdictions, and hope to have an update on that soon. And with that, I'll conclude my report.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Are there any other items that any directors care to raise at all or comments at all? Otherwise, we will stand adjourned. I will say thank you very much to everybody for your time today, but also engagement. There's occasionally issues that are not, consensus, and I'm very much appreciative of everyone's contributions and commitment to the organization and the region as a whole. So any further questions, comments at all today? Hearing and seeing none, we will stand adjourned to September 17th, 2020. Take
Thanks,
care.
Lucas. It's kind of a light meeting.
Lucas, great, nicely done.
Thank you. Take care. Have a good one.
Job, Lucas.